Welcome to our channel. Hollywood Movie Review. Black Panther 2018 Movie Review. Black Panther is a 2018 American superhero film based on the Marvel Comics character of the same name. Produced by Marvel Studios and distributed by Walt Disney Studios Motion Pictures, it is the 18th film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, MCU. The film was directed by Ryan Coogler, who co-wrote the screenplay with Joe Robert Cole, and it stars Chadwick Boseman as T'Challa/Black Panther alongside Michael B. Jordan, Lupita Nyong'o, Danai Gurira, Martin Freeman, Daniel Kaluuya, Letitia Wright, Winston Duke, Sterling K. Brown, Angela Bassett, Forrest Whitaker, and Andy Serkis. In Black Panther, T'Challa is crowned king of Wakanda following his father's death, but he is challenged by Killmonger, Jordan, who plans to abandon the country's isolationist policies and begin a global revolution. Wesley Snipes planned to make a Black Panther film in 1992, but the project did not come to fruition. In September 2005, Marvel Studios listed a Black Panther film as one of 10 films based on Marvel characters intended to be distributed by Paramount Pictures. Mark Bailey was hired to write a script in January 2011. Black Panther was officially announced in October 2014, and Boseman made his first appearance as the character in Captain America: Civil War, 2016. Cole and Coogler had joined by then, with additional casting in May. Black Panther was the first Marvel Studios film with a black director and a predominantly black cast. Principal photography took place from January to April 2017 at EUE/Screen Gem Studios in the Atlanta metropolitan area, and in Busan, South Korea. Black Panther premiered at the Dolby Theater in Los Angeles on January 29, 2018, and was released theatrically in the United States on February 16, as part of Phase 3 of the MCU. Critics praised its direction, writing, acting, particularly that of Boseman, Jordan, and Wright, costume design, production values, and soundtrack, but some criticized the visual effects. Many critics considered the film to be one of the best in the MCU, and it was noted for its cultural significance. The National Board of Review and the American Film Institute named Black Panther one of the top 10 films of 2018. It grossed over $1.3 billion worldwide and broke numerous box office records, becoming the highest-grossing film directed by a black filmmaker, the 9th highest-grossing film at the time of its release, the 3rd highest-grossing film in the US and Canada that year, and the 2nd highest-grossing film of 2018. Black Panther was nominated for 7 awards at the 91st Academy Awards, winning 3, and received numerous other accolades. It was the first superhero film to receive a Best Picture nomination, and the first MCU film to win an Academy Award. A sequel, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, was released on November 11, 2022, with Wright taking over as the lead following Boseman's death in 2020, while a third film is in development. An animated series, Eyes of Wakanda, was released in August 2025 on Disney+. Thousands of years ago, 5 African tribes warred over a meteorite containing the metal vibranium. One warrior ingests a heart-shaped herb affected by the metal and gains superhuman abilities, becoming the first Black Panther. He unites all but the Jabari tribe to form the nation of Wakanda. Over centuries, the Wakandans use vibranium to develop advanced technologies and isolate themselves from the world by posing as an underdeveloped country. In 1992, Wakanda King T'Chaka visits his brother Enyobu, who is working undercover in Oakland, California. T'Chaka accuses Enyobu of assisting black market arms dealer Ulysses Clay with stealing vibranium from Wakanda. Enyobu's partner reveals he is Zuri, another undercover Wakandan, and confirms T'Chaka's suspicions. In the present day, following T'Chaka's death, his son T'Challa returns to Wakanda to assume the throne. He and Okoye, leader of the Dora Milaje, extract T'Challa's ex-lover Nakia from an undercover assignment so she can attend his coronation ceremony with his mother Raymunda and younger sister Shuri. At the ceremony, the Jabari tribe's leader M'Baku challenges T'Challa for the crown in ritual combat without the benefit of the heart-shaped herb. T'Challa defeats M'Baku when he persuades him to yield rather than die. When Clay and his accomplice Eric Stevens steal a Wakandan artifact from a London museum, T'Challa's friend and Okoye's husband W. Kabi urges him to bring Clay back alive. T'Challa, Okoye, and Nakia travel to Busan, South Korea, where Clay plans to sell the artifact to CIA agent Everett K. Ross. A firefight erupts, and Clay attempts to flee but is caught by T'Challa, who reluctantly releases him to Ross's custody. Clay tells Ross that Wakanda's international image is a front for a technologically advanced civilization. When Eric attacks to extract Clay, Ross is gravely injured protecting Nakia. Rather than pursue Clay, T'Challa takes Ross to Wakanda, where their technology can save him. While Shuri tends to Ross, T'Challa confronts Zuri about Enyobu, since Eric wore a necklace that belonged to him. Zuri explains that Enyobu had become disillusioned with Wakanda's isolationism and planned to share Wakanda's technology with people of African descent to help them overcome their oppressors, with Clay's assistance. Before T'Chaka could apprehend Enyobu attacked Zuri, forcing T'Chaka to kill him. T'Chaka instructed Zuri to claim that Enyobu had vanished and to leave behind Enyobu's American son, Anyadaka, to uphold the story. This boy grew up to become Eric, a U.S. Black Ops Navy SEAL who took on the nickname Killmonger. Meanwhile, Killmonger kills Clay and brings his body to Wakanda. He is presented before the tribal elders, revealing himself as Anyadaka and asserting his claim to the throne. Killmonger challenges T'Challa to ritual combat and kills Zuri. Without the powers of the heart-shaped herb, T'Challa is severely injured and presumed dead after Killmonger throws him over a waterfall. Killmonger ingests the heart-shaped herb and orders the rest to be incinerated, but Nakia manages to extract one. Killmonger, backed by W. Kabi and his army, prepares to distribute shipments of Wakandan weapons to operatives worldwide. Nakia, Shuri, Raymunda, and Ross flee to the Jabari tribe for aid. They find a comatose T'Challa, rescued by the Jabari as repayment for sparing M'Baku's life. Healed by Nakia's herb, T'Challa returns to fight Killmonger, who also dons a nanotech suit similar to T'Challa's. W. Kabi and his army fight Shuri, Nakia, and the Dora Milaje while Ross remotely pilots a jet and shoots down the planes carrying vibranium weapons before they can leave Wakanda. M'Baku and the Jabari arrive to reinforce T'Challa. Confronted by Okoye, W. Kabi and his army stand down. Fighting in Wakanda's vibranium mine, T'Challa disrupts Killmonger's suit and stabs him. Killmonger refuses to be healed, choosing to die as a free man rather than be incarcerated. T'Challa shows him the Wakanda sunset, and Killmonger dies peacefully. T'Challa establishes an outreach center at the building where Enyobu died, to be run by Nakia and Shuri. In a mid-credits scene, T'Challa appears before the United Nations to reveal Wakanda's true nature to the world. In a post-credits scene, Shuri helps Bucky Barnes with his rehabilitation. In June 1992, Wesley Snipes announced his intention to make a film about Black Panther, and began work on it by that August. Snipes felt that Africa had been portrayed poorly in Hollywood films previously, and that this film could highlight the majesty of the continent due to the title character being noble and the antithesis of African stereotypes. The next July, Snipes planned to begin the Black Panther after starring in Demolition Man, 1993, and a month later he expressed interest in making sequels to the film as well. In January 1994, Snipes entered talks with Columbia Pictures to portray Black Panther, and Black Panther co-creator Stan Lee joined the film by March. It entered early development by May. Snipes had discussions with several different screenwriters and directors about the project, including Mario Van Peebles and John Singleton. When the film had not progressed by January 1996, Lee explained that he had not been pleased with the scripts for the project. Snipes said that one of the issues with the project's development was confusion among those unfamiliar with the comics, who thought the film was about the Black Panther Party in July 1997, Black Panther was listed as part of Marvel Comics film slate, and in March 1998, Marvel reportedly hired Joe Quesada and Jimmy Palmiotti, who at the time were editors of the Black Panther comics, to work on it. Quesada and Palmiotti have both denied this. That August, corporate problems at Marvel put the project on hold. A year later, Snipes was set to produce, and possibly star, in the film, while Artisan Entertainment announced a deal with Marvel in May 2000 to co-produce, finance, and distribute the film. In March 2002, Snipes planned to make the film or Blade 3, 2004, over the next year. In July 2004, Blade 3 director David S. Goyer stated that he felt Snipes starring as Black Panther in addition to Marvel's Blade might be overkill. In September 2005, Marvel chairman and CEO Avi Arad announced Black Panther as one of 10 films being developed by the new Marvel Studios. Marvel Studios received financing to produce the slate of 10 films to be distributed by Paramount Pictures. In June 2006, Snipes said he hoped to have a director for the project soon, and Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige reiterated in February 2007 that Black Panther was in development. By that July, Singleton had been approached to direct the film. 2 months earlier, Fantastic Four, 2005, director Tim Story expressed his interest in casting Jimin Hoon-soo as Black Panther if he were to direct another Fantastic Four film after Fantastic Four, Rise of the Silver Surfer, 2007, but a third Fantastic Four film helmed by Story went unproduced. In March 2009, Marvel hired writers to help come up with creative ways to launch its lesser-known properties, including Black Panther. Nate Moore, the head of the writers program, was overseeing the development of Black Panther specifically. Snipes' involvement stalled at this time, as he was convicted of failing to file a tax return, serving his sentence from June 2010 to April 2013. In January 2011, Marvel Studios hired documentary filmmaker Mark Bailey to write a script for Black Panther, to be produced by Feige. By October 2013, the metal vibranium, which comes from Black Panther's home nation Wakanda, was introduced in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Marvel had considered showing Wakanda itself as early as Iron Man 2, 2010, but were waiting until they had a full idea of how to depict it. In October 2014, Feige announced that Black Panther would be released on November 3, 2017, with Chadwick Boseman cast as T'Challa/Black Panther. Boseman did not audition for the role, instead discussing what he wanted to do with the part with Marvel 85 and earned $2 million for appearing in the film. The actor was set to first portray the character in Captain America: Civil War, 2016. Snipes gave his support for the project, despite no longer being involved. Feige said that Marvel was considering minority writers and directors for the film, but would prioritize the best filmmakers, the best writers, the best directors possible. So I'm not going to say for sure that we're going to hire from any one demographic. He added that they had met with former Black Panther comics writer Reginald Hudlin. In January 2015, Boseman said that the film was going through a brainstorming phase, and the next month Marvel pushed back the release date to July 6, 2018. Also in February, Feige stated that casting for the film was underway, and added that he was set to meet with directors about the film following the release of Avengers: Age of Ultron, 2015, at the end of April. By May 2015, Marvel had discussions with Ava DuVernay to work on either Black Panther or Captain Marvel, 2019, as director. In June, Feige confirmed that he had met with several directors, including DuVernay, and said that he expected a decision to be made by mid to late 2015. By early July, DuVernay had passed on directing the film, explaining that she had been drawn to the cultural importance of depicting a black hero to the whole world, but disagreed with Marvel on the story and did not want to compromise her vision. By October 2015, F. Gary Gray and Ryan Coogler had been considered as directors for the film, though negotiations with Coogler had cooled, and Gray had chosen to direct The Fate of the Furious, 2017, instead. Joe Robert Cole, a member of the Marvel Writers Program, was in talks to write the screenplay, and Marvel changed the release date once again, moving it to February 16, 2018. By December, discussions with Coogler were reignited after the successful opening of his film Creed, 2015. Coogler was confirmed as director in January 2016, and said that the film was his most personal movie to date, in part because he grew up reading comics, adding, "I feel really fortunate to be able to work on something I'm this passionate about again." After being wooed by Feige for months, Coogler agreed to direct the film if he could bring collaborators from his previous films to differentiate the film from other MCU films that are often shot, composed, and edited by the same in-house people. This included Fruitvale Station, 2013, cinematographer Rachel Morrison, as well as production designer Hannah Beekler and composer Ludwig Göransson, who both worked with Coogler on Fruitvale Station and Creed. Coogler felt Black Panther would be unique while still fitting within the MCU's overall narrative. In April 2016, Feige said that Coogler was working on the script with Cole, and that filming would begin at the beginning of 2017. He added that the film would be the first Marvel Studios production to feature a primarily African-American cast. Lupita Nyong'o soon entered negotiations to star as T'Challa's love interest, and Michael B. Jordan joined in an undisclosed role, after previously working with Coogler on Fruitvale Station and Creed. Nate Moore, serving as a producer on the film by the end of May, stated that filming would occur in Atlanta, Georgia, with Marvel definitely investigating shooting in Africa as well. At San Diego Comic-Con 2016, Nyong'o was confirmed for the film, in the role of Nakia, while Jordan's role was revealed to be Eric Killmonger. Also announced was Danai Gurira as Okoye. Coogler confirmed that filming would begin in January 2017. Additional casting occurred from September 2016 until the start of filming, with Winston Duke cast as M'Baku, a role that Yahya Abdul-Mateen II had also tested for, as well as Michael James Shaw, who was later cast as Corvus Glaive in Avengers: Infinity War, 2018, and Avengers: Endgame, 2019, out of interest of visiting Africa before passing on the role. Forrest Whitaker as Zuri, Daniel Kaluuya as W. Kabi, Angela Bassett as T'Challa's mother, Raymunda, Sterling K. Brown as Enyobu, and Letitia Wright in an unspecified role, later to be revealed as Shuri. Dominique Thorne, who would go on to play Riri Williams/Ironheart in the sequel Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, 2022, also auditioned to play Shuri. Florence Kazumba was revealed to be reprising her role as Ao from Captain America: Civil War. Amandla Stenberg, who is biracial and light-skinned, was considered for a role in the film but was not comfortable taking the place of a dark-skinned actor, and described her decision to pass on the role as really challenging. By January 2017, Marvel received permission from the Oakland, California, based public transit agency AC Transit to use their logo in the film for the opening flashback sequence. The setting was chosen due to Coogler growing up in that area. The production team was inspired by Ta-Nehisi Coates' run on Black Panther, who was writing the comic at the same time as they were working on the film. Of particular inspiration was Coates' poetic dialogue, Brian Stelfreeze's art, and some of the questions that it's asking. The film was also inspired by the comic runs of Jack Kirby, Christopher Priest, which Coogler felt most influenced the film, Jonathan Hickman, and Hudlin. Characters for the film were picked from throughout the comics based on what worked for the film's story. The ceremonial betrothal aspect of the Dora Milaje was not adapted from the comics for the film. Coogler had hoped to include Spider-Man villain Kraven the Hunter early in the process because of a scene in Priest's run that had T'Challa fighting Kraven, but the rights to the character were not available due to Sony Pictures owning all rights to Spider-Man characters. Donald Glover and his brother Steven made some minor contributions to an early draft of the script, developing the relationship between T'Challa and his younger sister Shuri. Moore noted that an early script had more scenes outside of Wakanda to explore what it means to be African and African American in the world a bit more, and hoped these could be revisited in a later film, particularly a super cool sequence that was storyboarded before being cut. Coogler and Robert Cole had considered including the Golden Age black hero Eli Bradley/Patriot for a while, but they ultimately excluded him to focus on Wakanda. Eli Bradley was eventually featured in the Disney Plus miniseries The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, 2021, portrayed by Elijah Richardson. Feige described Black Panther as a big geopolitical action-adventure that focuses on family and T'Challa learning to be king, with Civil War laying the groundwork for T'Challa's morality and establishing the geopolitical landscape that he would have to deal with on returning to Wakanda. Moore compared the politics and humor of the film to Captain America, The Winter Soldier, 2014, saying that the former would be inherent but not preachy, and that the latter would avoid the tones of Guardians of the Galaxy, 2014, and Ant-Man, 2015. He also said the film would be a cross between The Godfather, 1972, and the James Bond films as a big, operatic family drama centered around a world of international espionage. Coogler was influenced by 1970s films such as the works of Francis Ford Coppola in that decade, as well as crime fiction. He also watched the film A Prophet, 2009, for inspiration. Feige called the film's story rich in culturally relevant ideas, with Boseman indicating there were parallels to pull from in the film in relation to Donald Trump becoming President of the United States after Barack Obama, though Feige added that these are conversations we were having 2 years ago because that is inherently the story within the comics. Moore said the film does not depend on the plots of any other MCU films, but it does affect the wider MCU moving forward, with Feige stating the film was a very important link to Avengers, Infinity War, 2018, and Avengers, Endgame, 2019. Civil War did introduce the Wakandan language, based on the Xhosa language, which Boseman was taught by John Kani, who portrays T'Challa's father, King T'Chaka. Additional actors portraying Wakandans in Black Panther learned the language, with Coogler making the use of the language a priority, as much as possible. Coogler tried to incorporate Xhosa in natural and authentic situations, such as when multiple Wakandans were speaking in the presence of non-natives and wanted to say something they would not understand. John Kani's son Atondwe served as a dialect coach on the film along with his father. Cole called the film an historic opportunity to depict a black superhero at a time when African Americans are affirming their identities while dealing with vilification and dehumanization. It was important to root the film in the actual cultures of Africa, with the filmmakers consulting with experts on the region of Africa that Wakanda is supposed to be located in, rooting the film in reality first and then building out from there. Coogler's vision for Wakanda was inspired by the southern African country Lesotho, a country which has historically been an enclave, able to protect its independence because of its terrain and was only lightly colonized by the British. The country's traditional blankets are also featured in the film. Coogler compared the rarity of vibranium existing only in Wakanda to the real-life mineral coltan that can almost only be found in Congo. He wanted Wakanda to feel like a full country with multiple distinct tribes, and created a project Bible that detailed each Wakandan tribe to guide the design process. Special care was taken to create a futuristic look that was not alien, as some of Jack Kirby's original comic designs appeared. Coogler wanted to honor the comic designs, but fill in the gaps with research concentrated on sub-Saharan Africa, pulling inspiration from Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, Congo-Kinshasa, Ethiopia, as well as the designs of Zaha Hadid, and the pre-colonization architecture of the historic Mali Empire and the city of Timbuktu. Moore described this approach of taking inspiration from many different sources as a love letter to Africa. Coogler looked at the architecture of existing tribes, and then tried to advance the technology naturally rather than if Wakanda had been colonized. Circular motifs, signifying the transmission of energy, were an important theme throughout the film. Older locations depicted in the film, such as Warrior Falls, the City of the Dead, and the Hall of Kings, were juxtaposed with the more modern Afro-punk style of the Golden City, the capital. Rondables were incorporated into the tops of Wakanda's skyscrapers, inspired by the appearance of mountains at Blood River Canyon in South Africa. Coogler created different sigils and architecture for each of the Wakandan tribes, with the border tribe inspired by Lesotho, the merchant tribe having a sigil based on Nigerian writing, and the golden tribe using a sun symbol found throughout Africa. Gorilla City, home to the Jabari tribe, was originally set in a rainforest, but Coogler suggested that it be found up a mountain in snow. Coogler based the written form of the Wakandan language on an old Nigerian language. She consulted with mining and metallurgy experts for the vibranium technology, including for the vibranium mine where the substance is depicted as glowing blue rocks before it is refined into the stainless steel look previously seen in the MCU. The film also adapts the Kimoyo bead technology from the comics, and features sand-based technology. Coogler wanted futuristic elements of the film to be consistent with projections of what real-world technology may be like in 25 or 30 years, such as the maglev and hovercraft technology used in vehicles. The Wakandan vehicles include a maglev train for carrying vibranium, the King's Royal Talon Fighter, which looks like a mask from the top and bottom, and the Dragon Flyer, inspired by the Congo peafowl. The majority of Beachler sets were constructed on sound stages in Atlanta, including the Tribal Council, Shuri's Design Space, and the Hall of Kings. The Tribal Council set was built with a glass floor through which an old ruin can be seen. The exterior set for Warrior Falls was built on a backlet north of Atlanta, and was inspired by the Orobi Gorge. The set was 36 feet, 11 m, made up of a 6-foot-high, 1.8 m, pool, and then 30-foot-high, 9.1 m, cliff faces that were designed to be extended to 100 feet, 30 m, with visual effects. A framework for the cliffs was hand-sculpted from industrial styrofoam, with a system of tunnels built into the design to allow extras to climb up to different areas of the cliffs. The framework was then covered with 25,000 cubic feet, 710 cubic meters, of foam that was sculptured to match rocks found at Orobi Gorge. The pool was filled using 6 large pumps, so as to create a waterfall above the ledge at the bottom. The base of the pool was made from padding so stunts could safely be carried out on the set, but designed to look like rocks and to have enough grip that the actors would not fall over in the water. The set was completed in 4 months, and was used for 2 weeks of filming the Maasai, Himba, Dogon, Basotho, Tuareg, Turkana, Kosa, Zulu, Suri, and Dinka people in her designs. She also examined appropriate works by Japanese fashion designer Issey Miyake, French fashion designer Yves Saint Laurent, and American fashion designer Donna Karan Winnie Mandela provided inspiration to Carter for Angela Bassett's costumes. The Dora Milaje costumes primarily used red to reflect different African cultures, and included beaded tabards that feature talismans that would be passed down from mother to daughter. Carter wanted to avoid the girls in the bathing suits look, and instead have the Dora Milaje wear full armor that they would practically need for battle. She also had to take actors' stunt work into consideration. Anthony Francisco, the senior visual development illustrator, noted the Dora Milaje costumes were based 80% on the Maasai, 5% on samurai, 5% on ninjas, and 5% on the Ifugao people from the Philippines. The armband and neck rings were a reference to the southern Andeb people and denote stature. As such, General Okoye has gold bands and rings while the other Dora Milaje wear silver. The costumes for T'Challa combined his role as king and as the head of the military, including combining a Kent cloth cloak with military boots. Carter also used distinct colors and patterns for each of Wakanda's tribes, such as green with shells for the river tribe based on the Suri, blue with wood for the border tribe, black with royal purple for the Black Panther and the royal palace, plums and purples for the merchant tribe in reference to the Tuareg, and ochre for the mining tribe inspired by the Himba. 3 out of every 5 people in Wakanda go barefoot. The Wakandans wear normal clothes outside of the country, with the colors of their costumes kept consistent. Overall, Carter created 700 costumes for the film, working with an army of illustrators, designers, mold makers, fabric dyers, jewelry makers, and more. Hair department head Camille Friend referenced traditional African art, fabrics, hair, and textures, and the current-day natural hair movement in her designs. Friend strived to keep the actor's hair natural, using braids, locks, and twists, and when necessary, extensions and wigs. As with Carter, Friend designed each tribe to have their own identifiable aesthetic, such as the Jabari tribe having hair styled with very straight, clean lines and war paint detail, inspired by Senegalese warriors. Principal photography had begun by January 21, 2017, at EUE/Screen Gem Studios in the Atlanta metropolitan area, under the working title Motherland. Filming also took place at Pinewood Atlanta Studios, and in the Sweet Auburn neighborhood in Atlanta, which doubled as Oakland, the High Museum of Art, which served as the fictional Museum of Great Britain in London, and Atlanta City Hall, which served as a United Nations building. Cinematographer Rachel Morrison, who was eager to work on Black Panther after working with Coogler on Fruitvale Station, first watched all of the other MCU films to understand the established language. She wanted to push that language and feature more contrast in color. Visual effects supervisor Jeff Bauman provided Morrison with before and after shots of scenes from Civil War so she could understand what elements are captured on set and what is created digitally. She filmed in 3.4K RAW with Arri Alexa XT Plus cameras and Panavision Primo lenses, primarily using a two-camera setup with a third or fourth camera on occasion. Morrison said that lighting was her biggest challenge, the magnitude of which was much bigger than I'd experienced before, and made extensive use of Arri SkyPanel LED light fixtures, which she could pre-program from an iPad. Some sets were completely surrounded by sky panels. Shortly after filming started, Atandwe Kani stated that he would appear in the film alongside his father, the latter reprising the role of T'Chaka, while on-set photographs revealed that Martin Freeman would reprise his role as Everett K. Ross. Marvel announced that production was underway on January 26, and confirmed the casting of Freeman, Wright, and John Connie, while revealing that Andy Serkis would reprise his role as Ulysses Klaue from Avengers: Age of Ultron. Atandwe portrays a younger version of his father's character, and also served as a cultural consultant during filming. Dialect coach Beth McGuire worked to ensure there was continuity between the various actors who had to use Wakandan accents. Jordan joined the production later than the rest of the core cast. He felt that this aided his performance, since his character is separate from and in conflict with the other characters. Because of this, Jordan kept to himself while he was on set. Since Black Panther and Avengers: Infinity War were filming simultaneously in Atlanta, both production teams worked together closely to ensure a unified presentation of Wakanda in the films, as the country also plays a large role in Infinity War. Additional filming took place in South Korea, with the city of Busan serving as the setting of a car chase scene that involved 150 cars and over 700 people. Coogler and Morrison referenced the car chase sequences from Bullet, 1968, Drive, 2011, and The French Connection, 1971, taking the best elements from each for Black Panther's sequence. Filming in Busan began on March 17, at the Jagalka Fish Market. Filming moved to Gwangali Beach on March 21 with other South Korean filming locations including Marine City in the Haeundae district and at the Gwangandaegyo Bridge. The production crew hired hundreds of current and former film students from local universities as staff or assistant staff during the South Korea filming. Filming in the country wrapped on March 27 with additional location shooting also taking place at the Ruwenzori Mountains and Bwindi Impenetrable National Park in Uganda. John Marzano served as cinematographer for aerial footage of South Africa, Zambia, Uganda, and South Korea. At Cinemacon 2017, Wright was revealed to be portraying Shuri in the film. Filming concluded on April 19, 2017. Black Panther was edited by Michael Shaver and Debbie Berman, with Shaver spending time on set during filming as well as at an editing suite near the Atlanta production base. Berman joined the film after an initial director's cut had been produced, 2 weeks after she completed work on Marvel's Spider-Man: Homecoming, 2017, because Coogler likes to have both a male and female editing his films. She believed that she was chosen by Marvel because she is South African, and had been expressing interest in Black Panther throughout the editing process for Homecoming after first seeing the character in Civil War. Shaver said that a lot of their time editing was spent discussing how their work was affecting the audience. For instance, Shaver felt that initial versions of the first Warrior Falls fight fell flat and used techniques he learned working with Coogler on Creed to have the editing move back and forth to mimic the back and forth of the fighters. He also felt that adding more reaction shots to the crowd during the fight gave more weight to T'Challa's victory at the end. During work on the final battle, Berman pointed out to Coogler that the female Dora Milaje are rescued by the all-male Jabari tribe, which she felt undermined the focus on female characters leading up to that moment. Coogler agreed, and subsequently added female Jabari fighters to the scene through additional photography, including the first on-screen Jabari fighter in the scene. Berman felt that this was an important change that would not have been made if only men were editing the film. As first hinted by Coogler in January 2018, the film includes 2 post-credit scenes, one showing T'Challa address the United Nations, and one featuring Sebastian Stan reprising his role as Bucky Barnes. The first scene was originally intended to be part of the actual ending of the film, but was moved to during the credits so the film could conclude in Oakland, where it begins. Coogler felt having the symmetry was important. In the scene, T'Challa says the foolish build barriers, while the wise build bridges. Some felt this was a reference to the political climate of the presidency of Donald Trump, but Coogler stated that the line was added before Trump's election and was simply an African proverb that his wife had found. His intention with the scene was to inspire the audience by making T'Challa seem like a real person in a familiar, real-world environment, similar to how Tony Stark was treated in Iron Man, 2008. Coogler was not mandated by Marvel to feature connections to other films, but was interested in addressing the fact that Barnes was in Wakanda, per the end of Civil War, because it would be fun for the audience. He did not feel the character fit in the body of the film, but felt that an end credits scene was appropriate. Coogler originally pitched a post-credits scene teasing Namor, which would have depicted wet footprints leading to the throne in the Wakandan palace. This did not occur in part because of rights issues with the character. Namor debuts instead in Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, portrayed by Tenoch Huerta Mejia. Comparing Black Panther to other MCU films, Bauman noted that the visual effects department often have free rein when creating otherworldly science fiction designs, but had to be more specific with this film due to the need to be authentic to African culture and geography. For the Warrior Falls environment, the amphitheater-like cliff walls had to be populated with digital spectators that could not simply be copy and pasted around the set due to the precise costume designs created by Carter for each tribe and character. Instead, the visual effects department had to work with the costumers to individually model each digital extra for the sequence. Additionally, visual effects were also used to adjust the opening sequence after test audiences were confusing the characters of T'Chaka and T'Challa, both dressed as the Black Panther. Artists digitally added some gray to T'Chaka's beard and gold trimmings to his suit to help differentiate the characters. Film was primarily responsible for creating the digital urban environments of Wakanda. ILM VFX supervisor Craig Hammack compared this work to his time on Tomorrowland, 2015, but noted the additional challenge of not just building a futuristic city, but also one that was culturally appropriate. He explained that African culture has a certain amount of earthy material qualities that make things difficult to design as a futuristic city, which would typically use much steel and glass. ILM looked to real-life examples that blend modern architecture with natural environments like One Central Park in Sydney and the Pearl of Africa Hotel in Kampala, but also had to depart from a strict understanding of physics and go into a movie cheat world at times to produce the desired look. Hammack was also inspired by the architecture of Uganda, where he spent time while aerial footage for the film was being shot. 60,000 individual buildings were designed and modeled for the city, which Hamak said was the first thing ILM began work on and also the last thing they were doing when the film was completed. Other things that ILM worked on during the production included set extensions and blue screen replacements for interior sets, and the first rhinoceros shown in the film. For T'Challa's ancestral plane scenes, ILM replaced the basic set that was used with a full CG environment including an acacia tree and animated panthers. The sky was based on the Northern Lights, with this first designed for nighttime scenes before being replicated for daytime scenes in which the animators had to work hard to keep the effects visible. ILM also added additional sand for the burial sequences so Boseman could breathe during filming, and additional flames when Killmonger burns the heart-shaped herb. Method Studios created many of the natural environments of Wakanda. The company built a 3,600 square kilometers 1,400 square miles landscape that is visible in various aerial shots in the film, which was based on multiple landscapes from across Africa. Method was also responsible for creating Black Panther's and Killmonger's digital suits, including developing the look of the nanotechnology they use. They created many of the film's digital characters, vehicles, and weapons, with some of those digital creatures being rhinoceroses for the final battle, a sequence that Method did the majority of the work for. Because these rhinoceroses did not have to be seen on screen with the one designed by ILM, only basic structures, scale, and details of the character models had to be shared between the two companies. Much of the work for the final fight included crowd simulation, with Method working alongside the stunt coordinators in motion capture sessions to give each fighter a unique style. In addition to randomizing the height and weight of each digital fighter, the models had to incorporate specific design elements from the costumers. Method also worked on the vibranium mine and Shuri's laboratory, including animating the gadgets seen in the latter. Luma Pictures worked on the Busan car chase sequence, digitally creating the cars featured in the sequence based on CAD models and on-set reference. Multiple digital versions of the same car were created, so the production could have the actual cars crash and do various stunts with them, with Luma then inserting the digital versions to augment these moments. Luma also created the sonic forces from Clay's cannon, while Scanline VFX worked on digitally removing Circus' left arm for the London Museum heist sequence. Several companies worked on the vibranium sand effects used in Wakandan technology, including ILM for the beginning of the film. Perception spent 18 months researching real-world technologies, phenomena, and visual themes to aid them in their work on the film. Their designs for the vibranium sand were based on research being done with ultrasonic transducers for the purpose of mid-air haptics and acoustic levitation. They integrated this research into the Kimoyo beads worn by Wakandans and as a working interface on the Royal Talon fighter. Perception also created the traditional displays on the Talon fighter and in Shuri's lab. For the Talon fighter, the company experimented with parallax, depth, and volume in the information being displayed, as well as developing a unique color palette to brand the Wakandan tech. In Shuri's lab, Perception adjusted the hues on the wall to match her attire, and for her healing room proposed that the hexagonal pattern seen on the wall actually reveal itself to be articulating panels that pulse and ripple. The company also created the function of Black Panther's suit with nanotechnology and layering the suit with different patterns as well as adding subdermal luminescent tattoos, the virtual car chase with Shuri and T'Challa, and designed the opening prologue, with the final version created by Storm VFX. Perception also created the main on-end title sequence. After reading the script, composer Ludwig Göransson decided to go to Africa to do research for the film. He spent a month in Senegal, first traveling around with musician Babo Mal on his tour and then spending several weeks working with local musicians to form the base of his score. Göransson was particularly drawn to the talking drum and the tumbin, or fula flute, to use in his character themes, along with horns. Nate Moore compared the work Göransson did in defining the sound of the film to the use of music by James Gunn in the Guardians of the Galaxy films, with the composer pushing Marvel out of their comfort zone. Kendrick Lamar produced the film's curated soundtrack, Black Panther, the album, along with Top Dog Entertainment founder Anthony Tiffith, after Coogler wanted to include original songs from Lamar in the film because his artistic themes align with those we explore in the film. The soundtrack features songs that are heard in the film as well as others that are inspired by it, with the other artists featured the majority of top billing names under Top Dog Entertainment. Goranson collaborated with Lamar and producer Sonwave on the soundtrack. 3 singles from the album were released throughout January and February 2018, All the Stars, King's Dead and Pray For Me. Black Panther, the album was released on February 9, 2018, while a soundtrack of Goranson's score was released on February 16. An extended play titled Black Panther, Wakanda Remixed, featuring remixes of 5 cues from Goranson's score, was released on August 16, 2018. Goranson worked with several other artists to create the remixes. Marvel debuted early footage and concept art from the film at a press event in April 2017. Kyle Buchanan of Vulture praised the cinematography, costume, and production design, and black cast, saying Black Panther doesn't look like any of the other Marvel movies. If this is what the future of superhero movies looks like, deal me in. The screen footage was the first time Marvel had shown raw dailies, which Feige said they did to show off the highest class cast we've had despite editing having not yet begun. A poster was released ahead of the first teaser trailer, which premiered during Game 4 of the 2017 NBA Finals. Fans on Twitter felt the poster was poorly photoshopped and it was compared to a real-life picture of Black Panther Party co-founder Huey P. Newton. The trailer received a much more positive response, with Peter Siretta of /Film finding it unexpected and refreshing. IO9's Charles Pulliam calling it every bit as intense as you were hoping it would be, and Andrew Husband for Upros feeling the single teaser outshone the entire Homecoming marketing campaign. It was viewed 89 million times in 24 hours, generating 349,000 mentions, second only to the amount the Star Wars, The Last Jedi, 2017, teaser received, and dominated the conversation on social media over Game 4. Per Comscore and its pre-act service, the film was the subject of the most new social media conversations for the rest of the week, and the second most for the week ending June 18, behind Homecoming. Costumes from the film were on display at D23 Expo 2017 and the 2017 San Diego Comic-Con, with Coogler, Boseman, and other members of the cast presenting exclusive footage of the film at the latter event, to a standing ovation from the audience. In September, Coogler, Gurira, and more participated in a panel at the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation's annual legislative conference, where exclusive footage from the film was also shown and met with a positive response. On October 16, 2017, a full trailer was released. Dave Trumbore for Collider praised the trailer for showing an unmistakable sense of style unique to the character, while Bams McDowell's Brendan Day felt the trailer does everything right. Writing for Rolling Stone, Trey Johnson felt the trailer showed T'Challa as someone with the arrogance of John Shaft, the coolness of Barack Obama and the hot-headed impulsiveness of Kanye West. A few days later, Marvel Comics published a Prelude tie-in comic focusing on one of T'Challa's first missions as the Black Panther set around the time of Iron Man. The first college football playoff national championship halftime show was organized by Disney for the 2018 championship game, with Kendrick Lamar performing to promote Black Panther, the album and the beginning of ticket sales for the film. By February 12, Black Panther was the most tweeted about film of 2018 with more than 5 million tweets globally, and in mid-March it became the most tweeted about film ever with 35 million. During New York Fashion Week, designers Kushni E.T. Oaks, Akir Jones, Tome, Sophie Theolet, Fear of God, Chromat, and Laquan Smith created custom pieces that were inspired by the film for an event titled Welcome to Wakanda, Fashion for the Black Panther Era. Marvel Studios formed a partnership with Lexus on the film, with the 2018 Lexus LC being featured in it. The partnership produced a graphic novel, Black Panther, Soul of a Machine, which was released in December 2017 from writers Fabian Nicieza, Jeffrey Thorne, and Chuck Brown, a concept coupe from Lexus inspired by the character, and a Super Bowl 52 commercial featuring Boseman, Gurira, and Wright, which had 4.3 million views on social media after its Super Bowl airing, according to Relish Mix. Other marketing partners included shoe manufacturer Clarks creating a film-inspired variant of their original's Trigenic Evo shoe, PepsiCo and Unilever launching an arts program for young people in urban areas to be mentored by established artists. Brisk created an interactive Black Panther installation at the 2018 NBA All-Star Game. Lancome highlighted a line of makeup that Nyong'o and Wright used at the film's premiere, and Synchrony Financial with Marvel awarded the Ghetto Film School Fellows Program with a $50,000 grant, with Coogler speaking to the school students. Overall, Black Panther had the most expansive advertising budget and biggest line of merchandise of any Marvel non-sequel. Deadline Hollywood estimated that budget to be $150 million. Asad Ayaz, executive vice president of marketing for Marvel Films, said the campaign was about super-serving black audiences while still trying to appeal to all, in order to make the film feel like a cultural event. Disney and Marvel created a synergy program with the college football playoffs on ESPN, the ABC television series Blackish, Grey's Anatomy, Scandal, and How to Get Away with Murder, the freeform series Grownish, and the Bravo franchise The Real Housewives. Marketing outside the United States was fairly uniform, though in the Middle East the focus was kept on Black Panther in costume as superhero films just keep working there, according to Gianluca Chukra of Middle East distributor Front Row. This was the same for Asian territories. A Wakanda exhibit was featured in malls in 7 Chinese cities, along with displays showing Black Panther with other MCU characters. A special trailer created for China had Boseman explain the character's connection to other MCU films. Weibo attended the Los Angeles premiere to take pictures and videos with the cast and crew in real time for China, the first time the company has partnered with a foreign studio for this type of engagement. Black Panther had its world premiere at the Dolby Theater in Los Angeles on January 29, 2018. The premiere featured a purple carpet that was flanked by women dressed as the Dora Milaje, while Coogler, cast members, and other guests wore African clothing at the request of Marvel for attendees to wear royal attire, honoring the African setting of the film. Ahead of the premiere screening, Coogler received an extended standing ovation before he announced the cast of the film. Black Panther was released in the United Kingdom, Hong Kong, and Taiwan on February 13, in South Korea on February 14, and the United States on February. In the United States, the film opened in 4,020 theaters, with over 3,200 of those in 3D, 404 in IMAX, over 660 in premium large format, and over 200 D-Box locations. In addition, Black Panther was the first MCU film to be converted to Screen X, a 270-degree wraparound format, that played in over 101 locations in 8 countries. The film opened in most markets in its first weekend of release, including a cross-nation release in Africa, a first for a Disney film. Black Panther was originally scheduled for release on November 3, 2017 before moving to July 6, 2018, to accommodate Spider-Man: Homecoming, 2017. It was then moved to the final February date to accommodate Ant-Man and the Wasp, 2018. Black Panther is part of Phase 3 of the MCU. When Black Panther premiered in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia on April 18, 2018, it was the first public film viewing after a nearly 30-year-old ban on cinemas was rescinded in December 2017. The premiere took place in a cinema owned by AMC Theaters in the King Abdullah Financial District of Riyadh. Disney's regional distributor, Italia Film, said 40 seconds of the film had been removed, which was in line with cuts made to the film across the region. Awad Alawad, Saudi Arabia's Minister of Culture and Information, and Adam Aron, CEO of AMC Entertainment, were in attendance for the premiere along with other diplomats and industry experts. No one from the cast or production team was in attendance. Black Panther screened there for 5 days before Avengers: Infinity War premiered on April 26. Black Panther returned to 250 AMC theaters in the United States from February 1 until February 7, 2019, for free, with 2 showings of the film occurring at each theater for the week. The week-long return was in honor of the start of Black History Month and the film winning 2 Screen Actors Guild Awards and earning an Academy Award Best Picture nomination. Disney also gave a $1.5 million grant to the United Negro College Fund. Black Panther was released for digital download by Walt Disney Studios Home Entertainment on May 8, 2018, and on Ultra HD Blu-ray, and DVD on May 15, 2018. The digital and Blu-ray releases included several bonus features, behind-the-scenes featurettes, audio commentary, deleted scenes, a blooper reel, an exclusive look at Ant-Man and the Wasp, and a featurette on the first 10 years of the MCU. As of November 11, 2018, the film's Blu-ray and DVD releases have sold 4.2 million units and grossed $87 million in the United States, making it the best-selling film of 2018. Black Panther was originally made available on Netflix, but was removed in March 2020 after Disney regained license for the film. It was released on Disney Plus on March 4, 2020, in the United States and Canada. On June 19, 2020, TBS, TNT, and True TV aired the film, along with Just Mercy, 2019, another film which also starred Jordan, to coincide with the celebrations of Juneteenth and to support social justice against systemic racism in response to the murder of George Floyd. On August 30, 2020, ABC hosted a television special, Chadwick Boseman, A Tribute for a King, aired after the film's commercial-free premiere on the same day, to honor Boseman, who died on August 28, 2020, from colon cancer. The special was presented by Robin Roberts, and featured about Boseman's life, career, and legacy, as well as tributes served by celebrities, political figures, and fans. It also featured other Marvel co-stars, Robert Downey Jr., Scarlett Johansson, Jeremy Renner, Mark Ruffalo, and Paul Rudd, along with Marvel Studios chief Kevin Feige, and Disney CEO Bob Iger, sharing their experiences on working with Boseman, and the legacy he had left behind. The special released on Disney Plus after its television debut. On November 29, 2020, Marvel changed the studio's production logo animation in the opening of the film to include images of Boseman from the film, as well as his appearances in Captain America, Civil War, Avengers, Infinity War, and Avengers: Endgame. Black Panther concept art and excerpts from the script were also included. This change was done on the Disney Plus version of the film, to honor Boseman on what would have been his 44th birthday. Despite being released in IMAX theaters in the 1.90:1 aspect ratio, the home media release only includes the cropped 2.39:1 aspect ratio version that was used for non-IMAX screenings. The IMAX enhanced version of the film was made available on Disney Plus beginning on November 12, 2021. Black Panther grossed $700.4 million in the United States and Canada, and $649.5 million in other territories, for a worldwide total of $1.350 billion. It became the highest-grossing solo superhero film, the third highest-grossing film of the MCU and superhero film overall, the ninth highest-grossing film of all time, and the highest-grossing film by an African-American director. It is the fifth MCU film and the 33rd film overall to surpass $1 billion at the box office, and it is the second highest-grossing film of 2018. Deadline Hollywood calculated the film's net profit as $476.8 million, accounting for production budgets, marketing, talent participations, and other costs. Box office grosses and home media revenues placed it second on their list of 2018's most valuable blockbusters. The film had the fourth highest pre-sale tickets sold on Fandango, and became the top pre-seller for a superhero film and for a film released in February as well as the first quarter of a year. The first 24 hours of ticket pre-sales on the site were the largest for a Marvel film. Black Panther also had the highest number of ticket pre-sales for any superhero film at Alamo Drafthouse Cinema, while outselling all previous Marvel films at AMC theaters, and having strong pre-sales at Atom Tickets. 4 days before its United States opening, IMAX Entertainment CEO Greg Foster revealed that Black Panther had the most advanced IMAX ticket sales of any Marvel film, which did not appear to have peaked 10 days before opening as with most films. Black Panther, he said, feels like it's going to peak the day it opens. Fandango's pre-sales ultimately accounted for 30% of the film's United States and Canada opening weekend gross, one of the largest box office shares for any film in Fandango's history. Early projections for Black Panther's opening weekend ranged from $80 to $170 million, with rival film studios projecting the total to be as high as $180 to $200 million. Disney projected the gross to be around $150 million. It ultimately earned $75.8 million on its opening day, including $25.2 million from Thursday night previews, and $242.1 million over the 4-day President's Day weekend. This was the best President's Day weekend opening, and the best opening weekend for a black director and predominantly black cast. With a total gross of $202 million, the film had the highest February opening weekend, surpassing Deadpool 2016. For AMC theaters, Black Panther became the highest-grossing film ever at 33 locations, and had the biggest opening weekend for 150 of them. Overall, this was the second largest opening weekend ever for the chain with 4.4 million admissions. Atom Tickets sold more tickets for Black Panther than any other superhero film. Anthony D'Alessandro of Deadline Hollywood described the success as summer box office records during the second month of the year. The week after its opening weekend was also strong, with the record-setting Tuesday and Thursday earnings, becoming the MCU film with the highest first-week gross. It also surpassed $300 million in 8 days, becoming the fastest MCU film to do so. In its second weekend, the film earned $112 million, which was a 45% decrease from its opening week, the smallest decline in a second weekend for any MCU film. It was the second best second weekend ever, and the best second weekend for a Marvel film, beating The Avengers, $103 million. Black Panther also became the highest-grossing film released in February, surpassing The Passion of the Christ, 2004, $370.3 million. Black Panther was the first film to hold the number 1 spot at the box office for at least 5 weekends since Avatar, 2009, and the first February release to hold the top box office spot for 5 weekends since Wayne's World in 1992. The film declined over subsequent weekends, but remained in the top 10 through its 10th. In its 11th weekend, the film rose back up at the box office, in part because of the release of Avengers: Infinity War the same weekend, and the following weekend it earned $3.14 million from over 1,600 locations. D'Alessandro noted the gross from that number of locations indicated people were continuing to see Black Panther in conjunction with Infinity War. Black Panther was in the top 10 again in its 13th weekend. In its 25th weekend, Disney increased the film's theater count from 10 to 25 to help the film become the third ever to surpass $700 million. Brian Gallagher of IGN felt the film surpassing $700 million was more impressive than Infinity War's $2.045 billion worldwide gross at the time. Gallagher pointed to Black Panther being more consistent each week, never having more than a 50% weekend decrease until the 15th frame, while Infinity War dropped 55% in its second weekend, its February release date, without any major competition from other films, and the fact it was a rallying cry for diversity and representation. Black Panther is the highest-grossing film of 2018 and became the third highest-grossing film of all time, as well as the highest-grossing superhero film. Its IMAX total of $36 million is the most for any MCU film. In July 2020, due to the worldwide closure of cinemas during the COVID-19 pandemic and limits on which films played, Black Panther returned to 421 theaters, mostly drive-ins, and grossed $367,000, the second highest for the weekend behind The Empire Strikes Back's 1980 re-release. Outside the United States and Canada, the film opened in 48 territories in its first weekend and earned $184 million, opening at number 1 in most territories, though second in some, where 50 Shades Freed performed better, such as Germany and Italy. It became the top February opening in many countries, including in the African market and the Middle East, while taking the top spot across Latin America. IMAX accounted for $11.5 million of the opening weekend gross, from 272 screens, which included record opening weekends in the format for Nigeria, Kenya, and Indonesia. In its second weekend, in 55 territories, the film earned $83.5 million and remained number 1 in most, including across Latin America, while becoming the top film in Germany. The West Africa region saw a 7% increase, which resulted in the biggest 3-day weekend ever there. Trinidad had the biggest opening weekend ever, $700,000, and the IMAX release in Russia, $1.7 million, was a February record for that country. In its third weekend, the film remained number 1 across many of its 56 territories, including the entire Latin America region, while its opening in Japan was the top Western film for the weekend, the second overall. In its fourth weekend, Black Panther opened in China, $66.5 million, with the fourth highest MCU and superhero opening ever in the country. This included the biggest opening day and opening weekend, $7.3 million, of March for IMAX in China. The film also remained at number 1 in the United Kingdom and the Latin America region, except Argentina, for the fourth straight weekend, as well as number 1 in South Africa, Australia, and New Zealand. Black Panther was the top film in South Africa for 7 weeks, where it became the highest grossing film ever. It also became the highest grossing film of all time in West and East Africa, and the Southern Africa region, and the highest grossing superhero film ever in the Netherlands. As of April 8, 2018, the film's largest markets were China, $104.6 million, the United Kingdom, $67.7 million, and South Korea, $42.8 million. It became the fifth highest grossing MCU film of all time in other territories. The review aggregator Rotten Tomatoes reported an approval rating of 96%, with an average score of 8.3/10, based on 526 reviews. The website's critical consensus reads, "Black Panther elevates superhero cinema to thrilling new heights while telling one of the MCU's most absorbing stories and introducing some of its most fully realized characters." As of February 18, 2018, it was the best reviewed live-action superhero film on the site, beating The Dark Knight, 2008, and Iron Man, both 94%. Metacritic, which uses a weighted average, assigned the film a score of 88 out of 100 based on 55 critics, indicating universal acclaim. Audiences polled by CinemaScore gave the film an average grade of A+ on an A+ to F scale, the second live-action superhero film to receive that grade after Marvel's The Avengers. Filmgoers polled by ComScore's post-track service gave the film a 95% positive score and an 88% definite recommend, with a third of people planning to see the film again. Relish Mix reported that the use of Twitter hashtags for #Black Panther and tagging of the film's Twitter account from those leaving the theater was the highest for a film's opening weekend, with 559,000 unique posts in one day. 100,000 posts for a film is average. Black Panther was listed on many critics' top 10 lists as a top film of 2018. Individual critics called Black Panther one of the best standalone Marvel films, one of the best Marvel origin films, one of the best superhero films of the century, and a refreshing answer to the increasingly stale world of superhero cinema. Peter Travers of Rolling Stone called it unlike any other Marvel film, an exhilarating triumph on every level from writing, directing, acting, production design, costumes, music, special effects to you name it. Jamie Bowie put the film in the same league as Superman, 1978, Spider-Man 2, 2004, and The Dark Knight, superhero films that do not transcend the genre as much as they embrace it in all its respects. Bowie concluded, Black Panther could have been just another Marvel romp, but Coogler and company had the power, and perhaps the responsibility, to do much more. And they did. The cast was acclaimed. Todd McCarthy of The Hollywood Reporter said Boseman certainly holds his own, but there are quite a few charismatic supporting players including Jordan, Nyong'o, and Wright. The writing was praised for its handling of themes of Africans. Manala Dargis honored Black Panther as an emblem of a past that was denied and a future that feels very present due to its focus on Black imagination, creation, and liberation. At the Los Angeles Times, Kenneth Turan praised the themes of the film and their exploration of what wealthy countries owe to the poor and oppressed, and noted that the film draws energy from Coogler's sense of excitement at all he's attempting, saying that the film was worth seeing twice, which he felt was rare for a modern superhero film. Richard Roper, writing for the Chicago Sun-Times, said audiences should watch the film if they appreciate finely honed storytelling with a Shakespearean core, winning performances from an enormously talented ensemble, provocative premises touching on isolationism, revolution, and cultures of oppression, and oh yeah, tons of whiz-bang action sequences and good humor. Brian Truitt of USA Today stated, while the themes are deep, Black Panther is at the same time a visual joy to behold, with confident quirkiness, insane action sequences and special effects, and the glorious reveal of Wakanda. Natasha Alford of The Grio called the film a movement, a revolution in progress, and a joy to experience all wrapped into one, and called it a master class in what it means to be proud of who you are. Jamie Broadnax of Black Girl Nerds called the film a masterpiece that is Afrofuturistic and blackety-black as hell. It's everything I've ever desired in a live-action version of this popular superhero and yet so much more. Bowie said, it is fair to say that Black Panther is the most political movie ever produced by Marvel Studios, both in its very existence, and in the questions its story raises. Devendra Hardawar at Engadget was critical of the CGI, notably the digital actors used, calling them weightless, ugly and, worst of all, incredibly distracting. Hardawar felt two particularly disappointing CGI shots were when T'Challa flips over a car during the Korea chase, and when T'Challa and Killmonger punch each other as they fall within the vibranium mines. Writing for Time, Jamil Smith felt Black Panther would prove to Hollywood that African American narratives have the power to generate profits from all audiences, and described it as a resistance to a regressive cultural and political moment fueled in part by the white nativist movement. Its themes challenge institutional bias, its characters take unsubtle digs at oppressors, and its narrative includes prismatic perspectives on Black life and tradition. Discussing the film as a defining moment for Black America in the New York Times Magazine, Carvale Wallace said that in contrast to earlier Black superhero films, Black Panther is steeped very specifically and purposefully in its Blackness. He felt Wakanda would become a promised land for future generations of Black Americans, untroubled by the criminal horrors of our current American existence. Historian Nathan D.B. Connolly said Black Panther was a powerful fictional analogy for real-life struggles that taps into a 500-year history of African-descended people imagining freedom, land, and national autonomy. Connolly also felt, culturally, the film would be this generation's A Raisin in the Sun, 1961. Writer and activist Sean King found the film to be a cultural moment in American Black history similar to Rosa Parks' Montgomery bus boycott, Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech, or Barack Obama being elected president. By contrast, James Wilt, writing for Canadian Dimension, stated that at its core, Black Panther contains a fundamentally reactionary understanding of black liberation that blatantly advocates respectability politics over revolution, allowing white folks such as myself to feel extremely comfortable watching it. Walt found the scene where Ross is portrayed as the hero for shooting down the Wakandan ships to be the film's way of approving the vanquishing of armed resistance against oppression. Walt also felt that Killmonger was given the most hideous traits imaginable, making the only major African American character and agitator for revolution a manic killer consumed by rage and violence. Russell Rickford of Africa is a Country wrote that Killmonger's role as a character is to discredit radical internationalism. Faisal Qudsi from Middle East: I felt the film had underlying Islamophobic themes, with the only Islamic characters being a Boko Haram-based group that kidnapped several girls and forced them to wear hijab. Science and Entertainment Exchange Director for the National Academy of Sciences Richard Lovard felt the film would increase interest in science, technology, and Africa for young black Americans, similarly to how the Hunger Games films and Brave, 2012, sparked girls' interest in archery. Broadnax felt many people who generally do not watch comic book films would go to Black Panther since they're going to see themselves reflected in a huge way that they just haven't been able to see before, especially since the film avoided the plight typically depicted in films about the black experience. She also stated that the strong female characters, such as Shuri, would be an inspiration for girls. Gil Robertson, co-founder and president of the African American Film Critics Association, called the film critically important and a gate-opener opportunity for other black-centered projects. In 2022, producer and actress Viola Davis credited the film for helping her film The Woman King, 2022, get made. Child development expert Deborah Gilboa felt the film would make a huge impact on children's spirits by offering positive role models. Scholar Marlene D. Allen felt the saying "if you can see it, you can be it" applied to the film, especially with the female characters in the film. Allen felt the women of Wakanda are the very definition of black girl magic, a term coined by C.A. Sean Thompson in 2013 to celebrate the beauty, power, and resilience of black women. Trey Johnson of Rolling Stone felt that after decades of trying to nail the modern black superhero, we may finally be getting what we've asked for, with Johnson saying Black Panther felt different from the blaxploitation films of the 1970s and the blaxploitation light attempts at black superhero films in the 1990s and 2000s because it was respectable, imaginative, and powerful, setting a new direction for the depiction of black superheroes. In the film's opening weekend, 37% of audiences in the United States were African American, according to PostTrack, compared to 35% Caucasian, 18% Hispanic, and 5% Asian. This was the most diverse audience for a superhero film ever. African Americans generally make up 15% of audiences for superhero films. In its second weekend, demographics were 37% Caucasian, 33% African American, 18% Hispanic and 7% Asian. In early January 2018, philanthropist Frederick Joseph created a GoFundMe drive to raise money for children of color at the Boys and Girls Club in Harlem to see Black Panther. Joseph said the film was a rare opportunity for underserved children of color to see a black major comic book character brought to film. Joseph promoted the drive with Boseman on the Ellen DeGeneres show. The drive went on to raise over $45,000, exceeding its goal, with the money also funding other programs for children in Harlem. Joseph also started the Black Panther Challenge, where he encouraged other people to create similar drives for their communities. GoFundMe made a centralized site for those wishing to start a drive for the challenge. 400 additional drives were started around the world, and the overall drive became the largest GoFundMe in history for an entertainment event, raising over $400,000. Many celebrities offered their support and contributions to the drives, including Ellen DeGeneres, Snoop Dogg, Chelsea Clinton, J.J. Abrams, Octavia Spencer, and British actress Jade Anuka. In June 2018, the Smithsonian Institution's National Museum of African American History and Culture announced they had acquired several items from the film for their collection, including Boseman's Black Panther costume and a shooting script for the film signed by Coogler, Feige, Moore, and Cole. The museum said that the collection provides a fuller story of Black culture and identity by showing the progression of Black Americans in film, an industry that once regulated them to flat, one-dimensional and marginalized figures. In conjunction with the Hollywood Reporter's Women in Entertainment Mentorship Program, and its partner the Greater Los Angeles chapter of Big Brothers Big Sisters, Walt Disney Studios created the Black Panther Scholarship, worth $250,000 to Loyola Marymount University. Boseman, Nyong'o, and Gurira presented the scholarship to its first recipient at the Hollywood Reporter's 2018 Women in Entertainment event in early December 2018. Dwayne Wong, Omaul, writing in HuffPost, saw the film and its comic origins as addressing serious political issues concerning Africa's relationship to the West that is very rarely given the serious attention that it deserves, with Wakandans portrayed as suspicious towards outsiders. He concluded that while the country is fictional, the politics are very real. The end of colonialism did not end Western tampering in Africa's politics. 308 Carlos Rosario Gonzalez of BAM. Smack. Pow. Said the struggle between T'Challa and Killmonger represents the collision of what it means to be African and what Africa means to Afro-minorities today. In this view, Wakanda represents Africa without Western colonialism, and Killmonger shows us that we can sometimes inevitably become what we seek to destroy, concluding that Killmonger wants to use Wakanda's resources to become a colonizer of the West while Wakanda's conservative ways created the very problem that sought to destroy them. Eric Killmonger. Jelani Cobb, writing in The New Yorker, discussed the divide between Africans and African Americans, which he called a fundamental dissonance. He felt T'Challa and Killmonger represented dueling responses to 5 centuries of African exploitation at the hands of the West. The villain, to the extent that the term applies, is history itself. Cobb added that Black Panther is political in a way previous MCU films were not, because in those we were at least clear about where the lines of fantasy departed from reality, while this film is set in an invented nation in Africa, a continent that has been grappling with invented versions of itself ever since white men first declared it the Dark Continent and set about plundering its people and its resources. 310 Writing. For The Atlantic, Adam Serwer argued against the assertion that Eric Killmonger was a representation for Black liberation, positing instead that he represented imperialism. He felt that this was emphasized through his actions, as Killmonger's attempts to take over several of the world's major cities notably include Hong Kong. Since China does not have a white Western hegemony in need of overthrowing, Killmonger's desire to conquer China was purely for the sake of power. Ultimately, he argues that Black Panther does not render a verdict that violence is an unacceptable tool of Black liberation. To the contrary, that is precisely how Wakanda is liberated. It renders a verdict on imperialism as a tool of Black liberation, to say that the master's tools cannot dismantle the master's house. Patrick Gathera, writing in the Washington Post, described the film as offering a regressive, neo-colonial vision of Africa, which rather than a redemptive counter-mythology offers the same destructive myths. Gathera highlighted the Africa that is portrayed, still essentially a European creation, as being divided and tribalized, with Wakanda run by a wealthy and feuding elite that despite its advanced technical abilities does not have a means of succession beyond lethal combat. The Wakandans still cleanly fit into the Western mold, a dark people in a dark continent according to Gathera, and they remain so remarkably unsophisticated that a returning American can basically stroll in and take over. The film should not be mistaken for an attempt at liberating Africa from Europe. Quite the opposite. Its redemptive counter-mythology entrenches the tropes that have been used to dehumanize Africans for centuries. Christopher LeBron, in a piece for Boston Review, called the film racist because it depicts Black Americans who had been left in poverty and oppression, as exemplified by Killmonger, as still being relegated to the lowest rung of political regard in the film, treated as less deserving of empathy and less capable of their acts being deemed heroic, than even Ross's white spy. LeBron felt that T'Challa could have shown himself a good person by understanding how Killmonger was affected by American racism and T'Chaka's cruelty, and could have agreed that justice sometimes requires violence as a last resort against oppression. He summed up by commenting that in 2018, a world home to both the movement for Black lives and a President Donald Trump who identifies white supremacists as fine people, we are given a movie about Black empowerment where the only redeemed Blacks are African nobles who safeguard virtue and goodness against the threat not of white Americans or Europeans, but a Black American. At the 91st Academy Awards, Black Panther received nominations for Best Picture, Best Original Song, Best Sound Editing, and Best Sound Mixing, and won Best Costume Design, Best Production Design and Best Original Score. The film's other nominations include a British Academy Film Award, which it won, 12 Critics' Choice Movie Awards, winning 3, and 3 Golden Globe Awards. Its nominations for the Academy Award for Best Picture and Golden Globe Award for Best Motion Picture, Drama were firsts for a superhero film, while its Academy Award wins were the first for Marvel Studios and an MCU film. The National Board of Review and the American Film Institute named Black Panther one of the 10 best films of 2018. The film was the top entertainment Google search of 2018 along with the 6th overall. In December 2021, its screenplay was listed number 57 on the Writers Guild of America's 101 Greatest Screenplays of the 21st Century, so far. In June 2025, it ranked number 96 on the New York Times list of the 100 best movies of the 21st century. 325 in July 2025, it ranked number 52 on Rolling Stone's list of the 100 best movies of the 21st century. By late August 2018, Disney hired Academy Award campaign strategist Cynthia Swartz to create a nomination campaign on behalf of the film for the 91st Academy Awards, with Feige and Marvel Studios said to have given the film a noteworthy budget for the awards season, an obligation which Marvel didn't consider for previous films. The campaign was focused to highlight the film's creative accomplishments and the global impact it made in the hopes of receiving a Best Picture nomination. The campaign was not altered with the announcement of the new Best Popular Film Award, which appeared to be designed to reward blockbusters like Black Panther in the event they did not receive a Best Picture nomination. The Best Popular Film Award was ultimately not implemented for the 91st Academy Awards, in order for the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences to examine and seek additional input regarding it. Glenn Whipp of the Los Angeles Times felt the blueprint for the film's Best Picture campaign was to communicate to Oscar voters that this is an auteur-driven superhero movie possessing a deep significance both to its director and to people historically underrepresented in Hollywood films. Another Oscar campaign consultant felt reminding the Oscar voters Black Panther wasn't just a movie, it was a phenomenon would help the film earn a nomination. Another said voters want to reward good movies and they also want to reward movies that say something significant and make the industry look good. The consultants also felt if Black Panther could earn multiple nominations in the Craft Award categories, it would bolster its chances for a Best Picture nomination. Whipp believed that Morrison, Coogler, Carter, Friend, and Harlow, and Lamar all had the possibility to be nominated for Best Cinematography, Best Production Design, Best Costume Design, Best Makeup and Hair Styling, and Best Original Song, respectively. A few weeks later, Disney revealed their For Your Consideration list, with consideration in all awards of merit categories, aside from Best Actress and categories it was not eligible for, such as those for animation, short films, and documentaries. Black Panther was ultimately nominated for 7 Academy Awards, including Best Picture, Best Costume Design, Best Production Design, Best Original Score, Best Original Song, For All the Stars, Best Sound Editing, and Best Sound Mixing. The film was the first superhero film ever to be nominated for Best Picture, while Beachler's nomination for Best Production Design was the first for an African American. Feige called the Best Picture nomination the highest form of recognition from our peers. On her nomination, Coogler said she felt a certain responsibility. It means breaking down walls, for young women of color and boys and girls of color to see that this is not impossible. Welcome to Wakanda, a third world nation that boasts, well, basically nothing. Sure, it's picturesque in its own way. And maybe it had a bit of vibranium, that super rare, super durable metal that makes up Captain America's shield back in the day. But Wakanda didn't have enough of the stuff to make a dent in the country's crippling poverty. Now it doesn't even have that, thanks to the thieving Ulysses Claw, pronounced Claw. With most of its vibranium gone, Wakanda is so destitute that the only folks who visit are those who got lost on their way to Chad. Nope, there's absolutely nothing to see in Wakanda. Nothing at all, unless, that is, you sneak past the high-tech, invisible cloaking barrier. Turns out, Wakanda has a bit more vibranium than its leaders let on. Like, a whole mountain of it. And you can do more than just make shields out of the stuff. It's awfully useful for transportation and medicine, for national defense and even fashion. Vibranium is the most useful substance since water, and this African nation is soaked in the stuff. As a result, Wakanda is secretly the most advanced society on the planet, and its capital city makes Abu Dhabi look a little dowdy, Tokyo look a little antiquated, and the Big Apple look like it's a little past its sell-by date. For centuries, Wakanda has kept its great wealth to itself, doing its level-headed best to protect its vibranium, its culture, and its people. And the country's new, young, all-powerful king, T'Challa, shows no immediate signs of reversing course. Some disagree with that tack. Admittedly, T'Challa's ex-girlfriend, Nakia, thinks it's high time Wakanda took a more active role in helping the hurting world around it. But let's face it, most African nations have learned, quite painfully, what it means to have something of value to the whole world: invasion, exploitation, colonialization. And even though Wakanda is a bit too powerful to worry much about that sort of thing happening, why risk it? Not everyone is so clueless about Wakanda's natural attributes, though. Clay knows there's more vibranium to steal, lots more. And he's recently found a new partner in crime, a guy with the moniker Eric Killmonger. But Killmonger has an agenda that even Clay might blanch at, one that could mean nothing less than upending and destroying the world as we all know it. He aims to turn Wakanda's vibranium into a mass weapon of vengeance, and he'll not let anything stand in his way. Let's do something unusual here and begin our positive focus with Killmonger. That's right, the bad guy. Make no mistake, Killmonger is bad to practically every lethal bone in his body. But as it is with most great movie villains, we see elements of a righteous impulse twisted in him. The guy has seen Africa exploited, misused, and ignored. He knows the injustices that the continent's inhabitants have had to endure for so many centuries, and he's angry about it. And when you look at history, it's not hard to find reasons for that anger. T'Challa understands those realities, too. But if Killmonger's determined to mete out catastrophic retaliation for past abuses, T'Challa looks toward the future, one filled with hope and reconciliation. He aims to walk a higher road, one that might serve as an example for other people and countries to follow. As king and protector of Wakanda, T'Challa's willing to sacrifice everything for his homeland. Yet he also recognizes the threat that Killmonger represents to the rest of the world, too, and he's determined to stop him. But here's an interesting twist: despite the obvious threat, T'Challa insists on opposing Killmonger fairly. He, along with most of the Wakandans we meet, doesn't try to achieve honorable ends through dishonorable means. Sometimes, admittedly, there's a difference of opinion about what path to travel. When someone usurps T'Challa's throne, Nakia decides to oppose the usurper. Meanwhile, Okoye, Wakanda's supremely skilled warrior/general, declares her allegiance to the throne of Wakanda, not the man who sits on it. Both pursue what they believe is the most righteous course under the circumstances. Nakia risks all to oppose a would-be tyrant. Okoye pushes against her own instincts to persevere with her duty. Both courses are pretty inspiring. We see plenty of others, even would-be antagonists, follow their own righteous paths. M'Baku, a chieftain from a rival clan and longtime T'Challa adversary, helps the king out in an hour of need. Everett Ross, a somewhat slippery CIA agent, is willing to sacrifice for someone else and jumps to Wakanda's defense when the need is dire. Wakandans help and heal people, even when it seems like it'd be in their self-interest not to do so. T'Challa, Nakia, and others rescue kidnapped women from heavily armed kidnappers. We learn that T'Challa's father made a difficult, far-reaching decision many years ago that his son now believes in hindsight was morally wrong. Spoiler warning. And finally, we must note that Nakia's desire for Wakanda to shed its reclusiveness and help the rest of the world as much as its resources will allow is a value that T'Challa eventually embraces, too. In times of great stress and trial, he says, the wise build bridges, while the foolish build barriers. And while we can obviously hear that dialogue as political commentary on current real-world issues, it's also a message the Christian Church has long embraced. While some of Black Panther's themes echo Christian ideas and values, the movie's explicit spiritual framework is rooted in another mythos. The Black Panther has been Wakanda's protector for centuries. The country's king is always given the power of the panther as part of his title, a power that Wakandans say comes from the panther god, Bast, by way of a glowing flower. As part of the new king's coronation ceremonies, Wakandan monarchs undergo a mystical death. As it were, they fall into a trance and are literally buried under dirt, or other such substance, where they travel to the realm of their ancestors, meeting the spirits of their fathers and others who have gone before. We hear people pray to these ancestors and praise Bast. Glory to Bast, I'm in good health, one says. T'Challa's widowed mother expresses faith that his father is still with them all. During ceremonial combat, M'Baku temporarily knocks T'Challa to the ground and taunts him, saying, "Where is your god now?" T'Challa and Nakia share some kisses, a couple of them a bit sensual. Nakia and Okoye wear flattering evening wear to a casino. Nakia's dress exposes her shoulders, Okoye's a bit of cleavage. Some Wakandan traditional garb displays female midriffs. T'Challa, M'Baku, and others sometimes go about without shirts. We witness plenty of typical superhero action here. Characters get punched and kicked and shot at. A few aircraft are shot out of the sky, though given Wakandan technology, I'm not sure whether those aircraft necessarily contained human pilots. Cars crash. Some are blown to bits. There's some seriously frenetic action involving high-tech Wakandan spears, secret arm cannons and well, not to give too much away, some well-armored animals. A few violent moments are worth noting in greater detail. Someone has his throat cut during a dramatic battle sequence. Others are stabbed in the shoulder or gut during ceremonial battles, and we subsequently glimpse their bloody wounds. A guy is shot in the spine, almost ending in his death. A woman is shot in the head and killed. Someone's thrown off a cliff, apparently to his doom. Folks die via spear and claw and bullet, with one being shot treacherously in the back. In flashback, we see men seemingly intent on sparking violence in Oakland, California, and they hide a pair of automatic weapons when someone comes to the door. We hear about some colonial-era atrocities. And there's also mention of slaves who, instead of submitting to slavery, killed themselves. A bunch of flowers are set on fire. A large animal gets thrown to the ground. We hear an arm apparently break. Killmonger has a long history as a soldier, assassin, and spy, and he says he's ceremonially scarred himself for each life he's taken. His body is covered with such scars. While Wakandan legend says the Black Panther's power comes from Bast, it technically flows from a flower that's ground into powder and then mixed into a liquid. When the Wakandan king, who, as mentioned, also serves as Black Panther, needs to undergo ritual combat with another claimant to the throne, he drinks another drug-laced beverage, which temporarily removes his special powers. We hear an occasional lie, including the whopper that Wakanda is a poor, third-world country. Yeah, just like Kanye West's most notable attribute is his modesty. A scene takes place in an illegal gambling parlor. Black Panther isn't just a movie, it's a moment. Most Marvel movies make a mint upon release, and this one will be no different. But the buzz surrounding Black Panther has hit a whole different level. It's the first blockbuster superhero movie not only to star a black hero, but a predominantly black cast as well, including Oscar winners Lupita Nyong'o and Forest Whitaker and newly minted Emmy winner Sterling K. Brown. Oscar winner Octavia Spencer, who's not even in the movie, thought the movie was important enough to rent out an entire movie theater and fill it with an underserved community, to ensure that all our brown children can see themselves as a superhero. Black Panther, in its own superhero way, deals with bigger cultural touchstones, most notably racial upheaval. But while this movie certainly has a special appeal for one segment of superhero lovers, it's also a movie made for all of us. Black Panther preaches, and I think that's a fair characterization, that we have a responsibility to make the world a better place. To help folks when and where we can. To use the gifts that God has given us to serve others and to hold ourselves to high, honorable standards. It tells us that while we can fight back against evil, we cannot respond to hate in kind. The only thing that can overcome man's worst impulses is to aspire to be better, more honorable, more just. Black Panther, like most superhero movies, is an aspirational story, one that encourages all of us to up our game, superpowers or no. It's a hard road such stories ask of us, no question, and the movie even acknowledges as such. When T'Challa faces his dearly departed father, he's told flat out, "You are a good man with a good heart." And it is hard for a good man to be king. But T'Challa's determined to try to be both, whatever the cost. Black Panther isn't necessarily better than some of the other standout superhero movies that have come before it. And, as noted above, it has its share of problems, whether it's the film's occasionally intense violence, its occasional profanity, or its often hinky spirituality. Still, Black Panther has a good heart, and it gives us a real hero, strong and honorable and, when possible, even filled with grace. Over the last several months my thoughts on Black Panther went from cautious to optimistic, lukewarm to generally excited. What nearly dampened my enthusiasm was the rabid, unbridled praise from early viewers who were quick to throw out words like masterpiece and the greatest superhero movie ever made. My personal favorite may be that the film will be taught in school and debated among intellectuals. Director Ryan Coogler has even been heralded as the new Spielberg. All of this does more to fuel my skepticism than stoke excitement. After all, there are some legitimate reasons to want a film like this to succeed, and it seems many are doing their part to ensure the hype is through the roof. But here's the thing, I don't need prodding in order to find reasons to be excited. Coogler is a fantastic young filmmaker. I absolutely love the cast. I couldn't wait to see how cinematographer Rachel Morrison follows up her Oscar-nominated work in Mudbound. Ultimately, all of the fawning puts undeserved pressure on Black Panther, which when brought down to reality is an extraordinary genre picture that stands strong on its own merits. With 2 feature films under his belt, The Good Fruitvale Station and The Even Better Creed, Ryan Coogler has shown himself to be an astute director with a fresh cinematic perspective. He brings all of that to Black Panther, which he also co-writes with Joe Robert Cole. His venture into the superhero genre feels epic in scale, yet maintains an intimacy that some of Marvel's other efforts lack. It's a careful balance that helps the movie excel in a variety of ways. The wonderfully cast Chadwick Boseman returns as T'Challa, a character first introduced in Marvel's Civil War. In that film, his father, the king of the small African country of Wakanda, is killed during a terrorist attack in Vienna. Black Panther begins shortly after, with T'Challa set to take his father's place as Wakanda's king as well as its superpowered protector. He's quickly faced with a host of challenges both from inside and outside of his nation's secret borders. Much like Wonder Woman a year ago, Black Panther reinvigorates its genre in a number of ways, and the 2 movies share similarities. In that film, it was the mythical island of Themyscira that remained hidden and untainted by the outside world. Here it's Wakanda posing as a poor third world country but actually rich in energy and technology thanks to a powerful alien mineral known as vibranium which they keep hidden from the rest of the world. Isolationism is one of the many subjects explored as the leaders of Wakanda's 5 tribes debate their traditional stance versus a more open world position. There is no easy answer, as I'm sure the inevitable sequels will prove. While T'Challa is the centerpiece, you could say it's the supporting characters who make this such a rich and full experience. First you have his allies, a delightful collection of powerful and personality-rich women. Lupita Nyong'o is fabulous as T'Challa's principled ex-flame and Wakandan secret agent Nakia, who's guided by conscience over crown. Danai Gurira is lights out as Okoye, leader of the female special forces unit known as the Dora Milaje. Letitia Wright plays T'Challa's live-wire younger sister Shuri. She's to her brother what Q is to James Bond. We also get great names like Martin Freeman, Angela Bassett, and Forrest Whitaker. In the bad guys' corner is Ulysses Clay, Andy Serkis, who knows Wakanda's big secret and has a sweet tooth for vibranium. There's something I love about Serkis' performance that I can't quite put my finger on. Clay is as bizarre as he is brutal, and you can tell Serkis is having a ball portraying him. But the name most people will be talking about, and rightly so, is Michael B. Jordan, who plays Eric Killmonger Stevens. His story is set up in the film's prologue and comes more into focus as the movie moves forward. As his name denotes, Killmonger has been raised in violence and therefore acts through violence. He is an essential piece to Coogler's story and offers more complexity than the bulk of Marvel villains we've seen. In many ways Killmonger is the product of choices made by others, and he is driven by a whirlwind of internal chaos, much of it aimed at Wakanda. Jordan is an absolute scene stealer, and you get the sense Coogler wants him to be. The two have collaborated on both Fruitvale and Creed, and they definitely operate on the same wavelength. Here the charismatic Jordan brings a swagger to Killmonger as well as a palpable rage which fuels his every move. Ultimately he is a misguided soul, yet at the same time a sympathetic one with much more driving him than the generic quest for world domination. In each of his films Coogler has shown a big interest in his characters, and it's no different here. He also gives a lot of attention to visualizing Wakanda as a majestic place full of cultural beauty and aesthetic diversity. Production designer Hannah Beekler and costume designer Ruth Carter make the most with their chunk of the film's $200 million budget. And it's all captured through Rachel Morrison's vibrant camera. As much as I loved Black Panther, it isn't without a few nagging issues. There are plenty of action scenes, several of which are fabulous. But the ending is the only time the movie falls in with the traditional Marvel formula, a massive final battle with a ton of CGI. While some of it is exhilarating, the effects aren't what you would expect and sometimes come off as a little cartoony. There are also a handful of unanswered questions and a couple of relationships that felt underserved. Minor quibbles in light of what all the movie manages to do right. Black Panther is indeed a socially relevant movie, as many have said, and it is so without depending on obvious narrative crutches or hammer-to-the-head sermonizing. It's socially relevant because it simply is. That may sound a bit trite, but it's the best way to state it. The film's setting, its characters, its conflicts all feel natural and authentic within the world Coogler and company create. The story's message and underlying themes are rooted in conviction and earnestly explored within the flow of the narrative itself. Really good filmmakers can do that. In the end, Black Panther is a rousing success, not because critics propped it up or commentators screamed its importance. It's a success because of the people who made it, immense talents in front and behind the camera who are hopefully opening the eyes of moviegoers and movie makers. But Black Panther isn't just a cultural statement. It's a terrific film that energizes a genre as it has a community. Not many movies can say that. Like many people, I went into Black Panther with the highest of expectations. I mean, the film has had nothing but wonderful, glowing reviews. So, of course I went in expecting a lot. And, I was not disappointed. In fact, it exceeded every expectation that I had, which I didn't think that it could do, and, yet, here we are. The thing about this film is that it feels more like a family drama than a superhero film. That makes it sound not interesting. Hold on. It reminds me of The Godfather, in that it's a family drama amongst a lot of action. Like, the superhero stuff is thrown in, but thrown in really well. The focus of the film isn't so much good versus evil, but rather privilege and power. My favorite thing about the overall story was the well-crafted villain switch halfway through the film. During the first half, we are led to believe that Ulysses Klaue, who was first introduced to us in Avengers: Age of Ultron, is the villain, going around and stealing the precious Wakandan metal vibranium. However, halfway through, we find that Eric Killmonger is the real villain, as he kills Klaue and proceeds to Wakanda to try for the throne. Villain is in quotation marks because I don't think you can really call him that. He's the product of the horrible thing that happened to him. It's even stated in the film. The Wakandans, the king, did that to Killmonger by not taking him after killing his father. They left him there. So, of course he grew up with a hatred for the ones who destroyed his family. And, of course, he grew up wanting to complete what his father couldn't. It makes perfect sense. He's not a villain. He's a person. That's what made everything hurt more. Well, that and Michael B. Jordan's wonderful acting. The chemistry of the cast was phenomenal, in particular, though, the chemistry between Chadwick Boseman as T'Challa and Letitia Wright as his sister Shuri. Every interaction they had felt so natural. It felt like they were family. There's not a single actor who I would say gave a weak performance, honestly. It's clear that they all worked very hard on this film to portray these characters and portray them well. The darker feeling of Ryan Coogler's directing comes through well, and blends perfectly with any comedy in the film. The filmmakers have cited the Francis Ford Coppola films of the 1970s and the Bond films as influences for Black Panther, and that comes through loud and clear. The costume department and the set designers had to have an amazing time working on this film. Wakanda is a made-up country, yes, but the countries that would be surrounding it are not. And all of those countries, all of the tribes within those countries seem to be used as inspiration for the look and feel of, not only the city of Wakanda, but for the people dwelling within it. There were so many varieties in regards to costume, that I would have to see the film at least 2 more times to fully appreciate the scope of it. There are minimal fight scenes in this film. However, the fight scenes that are there are jaw-droppingly awesome. The technology that is created for the film is incredible, my favorite being the remote driving system using hard light. Overall, the film was beautifully shot. The score by Ludwig Göransson perfectly fit the film. Coogler worked with people who he's worked with on his last couple of films. They know how he works, they know what he wants, and they all share a similar vision. It was a smart move that continues to pay off. You'd be crazy not to see this film. It's one of the rare ones that, even if superhero movies aren't your thing, I'd bet that you would enjoy it. The first thing I'll say about Coogler's Black Panther is that watching it causes the sequel to make a great deal more sense to me. My relationship to Marvel films is complicated because I've seen a few, and oftentimes removed from the context of the increasingly tangled corporate web that the studio has been spinning. Black Panther makes an especially strong case for Marvel to focus on its isolated stories far more, placing chips on the characters in front of them now rather than looking too far ahead into what role they might play in the cosmic comic book chess game. The African kingdom of Wakanda, composed of 5 tribes, has hidden itself from the outside world to protect its most precious resource, vibranium, a versatile and powerful metal. King T'Challa, Chadwick Boseman, ascends to the throne when his father is killed in a terrorist attack and assumes the role of the eponymous hero Black Panther. Despite Wakanda's best efforts to remain in the shadows, forces of evil still attempt to rob it of its precious vibranium. When Klaue, Andy Serkis, and Eric Killmonger Stevens, Michael B. Jordan, set out to steal and sell it, T'Challa and allies Nakia, Lupita Nyong'o, and Okoye, Danai Gurira, must stop them. Wakanda is a vision not only of an Africa removed from colonialism, but one that became that way in reaction to the empires swallowing the continent around it. With its natural resources unexploited, its technology exceeds that seen anywhere else in the world, with its cultural heritage protected, the kingdom maintains a strong connection to its history. This combination of undiluted progress and tradition creates a major superpower under everyone else's noses. While Wakanda can isolate itself, exponentially heightening this cultural feedback loop, the rest of the world's cruelty remains unchanged, both in regards to colonial exploitation and oppression. This is where Black Panther's strongest element comes into play, its antagonist. Killmonger, a young black soldier, helps Klaue's mission to plunder Wakanda, but for an entirely different reason than greed. Killmonger believes that vibranium-based weapons could cure worldwide black oppression, using their unstoppable power to tear down the systems and the people that perpetuate it. Throw in personal stakes and you've got yourself a standout action film antagonist. Killmonger doesn't indulge in frou-frou philosophy and instead sticks to the cold hard facts. Millions of people have been killed, stolen from and culturally erased for thousands of years, and he's tired of it. His Machiavellian methods and understandable motives likewise work hand in hand to create the most nuanced villain I've seen in a comic book movie. He is well paired with T'Challa, who fights for a better solution but hasn't borne witness to such oppression in the same way. Our other characters are not quite as complex but nonetheless enjoyable to watch. T'Challa blames himself for his father's death and experiences great insecurity in attempting to assume the role of king before he thought he would. The rest of the cast isn't quite as deeply written, but the characters still pop. Okoye, in particular, in large part because of Gurira's performance, serves as fantastic comedic relief. Many of her jokes land because she's not intending to be funny at all and Gurira plays her perfectly straight. Martin Freeman is also here as Agent Everett Ross, a rather nebbish white CIA operative. It's a little odd that he has such prominent screen time in what is largely a showcase of black talent, but it's fun to watch him squirm as he struggles to navigate unfamiliar surroundings. Winston Dukes M'Baku, the leader of the Jabari tribe, by contrast, was a character I wanted more of. His bursting charisma was fantastic, which is likely why he went on to have more time behind the camera in the sequel. T'Challa may have been Boseman's most prominent role, but the movie becomes M'Baku's for those brief moments when Duke is on screen. The action in Black Panther provides a great deal of punch, but not in the places you might expect it to. As is the case in many other Marvel films, you've got a large-scale final battle climax, but it's in the simple ritual combat sections in which Black Panther is at its best in this regard. There are several points at which T'Challa's crown is challenged and the title of king is decided in a fight. The action is purest when it's at its most visceral. The car chase in Busan is another highlight if largely for the music alone, which infuses the scene with electrifying energy. A flaw, shared by its successor, is that the film seems unaware of the tragedy of its conflict at times, as Killmonger inevitably turns Wakandans against each other. The lingering thought that good people are dying never escapes the brain. That usual Marvel firecracker flare drowns out the somber nature of what's unfolding here, and it's still bothersome that it's never satisfyingly addressed, at least by my vantage. There is a great deal of specificity to Black Panther which sets it apart from other superhero films I've seen. Though not all of our characters are terribly deep, each is given small touches and performance nuances which grant them individual, memorable life. The moral turpitude of its anti-colonial conflict, however, is what pumps the blood, and it's that political element which elevates the film beyond simplistic crowd-pleasing entertainment. True, the action is incredibly fun and the writing is snappy, as one should expect from any halfway decent action film, but I find its thematic struggle its most magnetic element. Wakanda Forever likewise comments on colonialism, but I think Killmonger wears it better. Superhero films tend to take themselves very seriously, but Black Panther is a rare gem in which its themes support such cinematic pomp and circumstance. You enter the theater chomping at the bit for action and leave thinking, I had been looking forward to write a review of this film since I saw it a week ago. By now practically everyone has seen this film, as it broke all kinds of box office records. Normally I don't really care for numbers for a big tentpole films like this one, but I am thrilled for the success of Black Panther because simply it's a terrific film that deserved to be seen on the big screen. The film's storyline is set just right after the events in Captain America: Civil War, a film I also admired a lot, where T'Challa, the then heir of a fictional African country Wakanda, lost his father. The young king of Wakanda returns his technologically advanced and supremely wealthy home. It isn't easy to be king, however, as his ascent to the throne faced many challenges. Unlike many superhero films where the villains are mostly maniacal figure hell-bent to rule/destroy the world, T'Challa's advisory turns out to be a personal one. I won't go into too much details about the plot as it's best to go into this blindly as I did. The story takes place mostly in Wakanda, but it started off in a familiar urban setting in Oakland, California. I love how relatable the story is, and you truly feel for the dilemma of the characters involved. Rich in vibranium, the indestructible metal that's used to make Captain America's shield, Wakanda isolated themselves from other African nations and posed as a third-world country. Run by the king's sister Shuri, her state-of-the-art tech lab would make even Tony Stark and Bond's Q envious. This is a country that truly can stand alone in the universe and would never need any other nation's help in any way. Therein lies the dilemma. Why doesn't it help other nations and fellow Africans in need? The themes of refugees and the role, and responsibility, of a powerful nation is so fitting given the current global refugee crisis. There is even a mid-credit scene that seems to directly address the current administration with its message about building bridges instead of barriers in times of crisis. The film doesn't shy away from the current political climate, yet somehow it isn't preachy and the story is still organic within the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's admirable in and of itself the fact that the plot fits perfectly within MCU but yet manages stands alone and in many ways, be ahead of the pack. Because the conflicts are so personal to our hero, even when the action sequences are huge and bombastic, it never overpowered the story and there are real human lives at stake. Let's talk about the fantastically diverse ensemble cast that made this film so great. From its intro in Captain America: Civil War, I already loved Chadwick Boseman as Black Panther, but here we get to see his dramatic chops. The charismatic actor's got an effortless regal vibe about him, plus he looks just as spectacular as a monarch as he is a superhero. He's surrounded by a phenomenal cast, from veteran actors like Forest Whitaker and Angela Bassett, to relatively new but accomplished young stars like Michael B. Jordan, Oscar winner Lupita Nyong'o, current Oscar nominee Daniel Kaluuya, Letitia Wright, and Danai Gurira. I have to admit I had a gleeful smile watching two of the Tolkien white guys, Andy Serkis and Martin Freeman, reunited in this movie. The latter had more to do here and he provided some of the comic relief along with Wright's Shuri. Kudos to writers Ryan Coogler and Joe Robert Cole for writing a villain who is multidimensional and someone we actually empathize with. Jordan displayed a layered performance as well as a towering physical magnetism as Eric Killmonger. Both he and Boseman are such strapping hot lads that their fight scenes are quite breathtaking to behold, but the action actually means something instead of just a gratuitous display of destructive force. Man of Steel. The filmmakers also created a conflict that has political/cultural significance that raises the stakes, yet keeping it grounded with human emotion. I'd say the film might pass the Bechdel test with flying colors, considering the number of female characters with a real arc instead of used merely as accessories. The real MVPs are Lupita Nyong'o as Nakia, T'Challa's love interest and a Wakandan spy, and Danai Gurira as Okoye, a Wakandan general of the all-female special forces. Gurira's army of badass women easily give Wonder Woman's Amazonians a run for their money. So gratifying to see so many heroic women of color on screen who are strong in terms of physical strength as in their intellect and resolve. Nakia is an especially inspiring character worthy of the king's love and admiration, and Nyong'o has an amazing screen presence. Forget Black Widow, I'd love to see a spin-off with Nakia and Okoye in their own standalone Marvel movie. This is what I called fun with substance kind of movie, which is what Marvel has excelled at by hiring indie filmmakers to helm their blockbusters. The film showed off the huge $200 mil budget in terms of visuals and action set pieces, but the best part of it is still the story and its characters. But man, what a feast for the eyes it truly is. Apparently Marvel Studios head Kevin Feige spent more on this film to get the wealthy beyond measure world of Wakanda just right, according to Vulture. The towering skyscrapers, the high-tech trains/spaceships, not to mention the incredibly rich costumes that would hopefully earn Ruth E. Carter some costume design nominations. They look stylishly futuristic while still honoring its tribal African roots. I love that Black Panther has a ton of girl power both in front and behind the camera. Its cinematographer Rachel Morrison has just broke new ground as the first female DP ever to be nominated for an Oscar, for Mudbound. Her stunning visual work here is quite Oscar-worthy as well. There's such colorful vibrancy in this film that's complemented by the lively score by Coogler's longtime collaborator Ludwig Göransson. I could go on and on about how much I loved this film. The stakes felt real and there were moments of genuine sadness, but it also didn't forget to have fun because hey, it's still a superhero movie. I love the exhilarating car chases that shows off Black Panther's prowess. Basically the entire scene in Busan, South Korea is just so freaking cool. I mentioned Shuri reminds me a bit of Bond's Q, well, some of the action scenes here at times feels like a Bond film but thankfully without the male chauvinism aspect. Now, it's not a perfect film as there are some pacing issues and some parts seem to go on longer than necessary. But really, those are really small quibbles in a largely masterful work by director Ryan Coogler. He's joined a growing number of indie filmmakers like the Russo brothers and Taika Waititi who've stepped up to the task of making such quality superhero films for Marvel. I'm glad that they now have a fruitful career ahead of them, as I want to see more of their work. Diverse representation alone doesn't make a film automatically good. But Black Panther did the diverse cast justice by giving them something worthy to do in a well-written, thought-provoking film. And that is definitely something worth praising about. I hope Hollywood would finally realize that racial diversity and inclusion does pay at the movies. It may not be the first black comic book-based movie, but it's certainly the biggest and best one to date. I know I wasn't going to cover superhero movies anymore on this site, but frankly there isn't much else going on just now and this is one of those films that everyone is talking about. Although I wasn't a big fan of Captain America, Civil War, my favorite aspect was T'Challa/Black Panther, who has rapidly become my favorite MCU character to date, mostly due to his awesome costume. Chadwick Boseman was born to play this role and he brings a dignity and nobility which we haven't really seen in the MCU so far. I went into Black Panther expecting another generic Marvel movie filled with too much goofy humor and zero drama, but was frankly blown away. For me, Black Panther is easily the best MCU movie so far and one that I want to see again on the big screen. There is some humor but the tone is mostly serious and the plot is genuinely dramatic and arguably Marvel's most political yet. The world of Wakanda is beautifully realized and we really get a feeling for the inner machinations, culture, and people. The African costumes and set design are just stunning and all I was thinking throughout was that I wish I lived there. Once again Chadwick Boseman nails it, making T'Challa a total hero whose main priority is the well-being of his people. I liked how Wakanda is so insular that they will not share their technology with the rest of the world, which is the cause of a lot of friction between tribes. This is also the motivation for our main villain Eric Killmonger, great name, played by an excellent Michael B. Jordan, who wants the throne of Wakanda for himself as he feels they can rule the world with all of this power at their disposal. There is far more to his character but I don't want to go into any spoilers here. Jordan brings real swagger and menace to Eric, but you also understand why he is angry, making him one of the most memorable Marvel villains to date. The supporting cast too are all fantastic and Andy Serkis is particularly entertaining as the batshit crazy mercenary Ulysses Klaue. Danai Gurira nearly steals the movie as Okoye, a general whose loyalty to Wakanda is unwavering. There is such imagination on display in this movie that I was just stunned at how they came up with some of these ideas, but also how some of the magnetic technology actually does exist in real life. The whole idea of the ancestral plane where you can communicate with your deceased loved ones is one of the best creations in the Marvel universe and something that is genuinely beautiful. The music score is just incredible, mixing hip-hop beats with African tribal chants and orchestra, so it will be making its way to my iPod very soon. There is, for once, real drama, which I have found to be lacking in many of the recent Marvel movies. People actually die and don't come back, but you also have a real emotional connection to these characters. It is admittedly a little slow in parts, but that was never a big issue to me, as I was just loving being immersed in this new world. I hope we get a series of Black Panther movies, as I need to make regular trips to Wakanda. So what of the action, which is why we're all here after all? Well, Boseman was trained by the great Marissa Crump for the fight scenes, which are impressive and satisfyingly violent too. This is one of the bloodier MCU movies to date, which actually adds to the sense of threat. There are a few one-on-one fight scenes, mostly between Black Panther and various challengers to his throne, but one of my favorite scenes was a car chase through Busan. There is sometimes too long a break between some of the action scenes, but like I said, I was so engaged with the characters that I didn't mind. The finale is the perfect mixture of futuristic tech meets tribal warfare, and by the time it was over I just wanted to watch it again. Although there is CGI in the movie, which I normally bitch about, it really didn't bother me this time and just added to the world building. Black Panther marks the first entry in the Marvel Cinematic Universe not about a white male. After 17 titles, the MCU has finally ventured outside of its limited racial boundaries, centering on a superhero who is neither white nor Western. The first Marvel Studios feature with a female hero, Captain Marvel, will debut next year. The studio's baby steps toward multiculturalism reflect a growing demand for diversity among superheroes, as enthusiasm for last year's Wonder Woman proved. And while the film's representation of African characters remains unique within the confines of the MCU, its politics and moral complexity engage as no MCU film has before. Directed by Ryan Coogler, Black Panther does not reinvent the genre. The filmmaking and entertainment value adhere to the precepts of a Hollywood blockbuster. But Coogler introduces such a singular world with the fictional African country Wakanda, and the issues that emerge from its isolationism are vital in today's culture war, where xenophobia and intolerance run rampant. By inserting such ideas into what might otherwise be a diverting tentpole, Coogler sets the film apart from other titles in the MCU, creating something smarter and more substantive than a typical superhero yarn. The film has something to say about race, history, and social revolution ideas percolating at this moment in the United States and beyond. Marvel Comics conceived the first African superhero in 1966, the same year the social revolutionaries of the Black Panther Party organized amid the civil rights movement in the United States. Ever striving for some measure of social justice, Stan Lee and Jack Kirby introduced Black Panther in the pages of Fantastic Four number 52, followed by regular spots in the Avengers and the genre series Jungle Action over the coming decade. Lee and Kirby's superheroes often contained commentaries on prejudice and inequality. For instance, their X-Men were a marginalized group of mutants hated by standard Homo sapiens. Beating their DC Comics rivals to the punch, Marvel continued to develop black characters for their readers, such as the Kenyan mutant Storm or the African-American heroes Falcon and Luke Cage. Though many black superheroes would emerge over the coming decades, it was not until the 1990s and 2000s that black characters began to feel like regular fixtures rather than token inclusions. Hollywood superheroes have progressed much slower than those in comic books. When Anthony Mackie's Falcon does little more than support Captain America, and producer Kevin Feige seems hesitant to commit to a Black Widow feature, the MCU's lack of diversity could hardly be described as progressive. Coogler's film could demonstrate to Marvel, and its Disney overlords, that audiences want superhero stories featuring someone other than another white guy. Then again, New Line Cinema's profitable Blade franchise should have confirmed as much. In fact, Blade himself, Wesley Snipes, endeavored for most of the 1990s to get a Black Panther film made with filmmakers like Mario Van Peebles and John Singleton. Later, Marvel courted Ava DuVernay, Selma, 13th, to direct. DuVernay passed, believing she would have to make too many artistic compromises, which was evidently not a concern for Coogler, whose Fruitvale Station, 2013, and Creed, 2015, were well received by most. Whatever DuVernay's concerns might have been, it's difficult to imagine an MCU film with more political teeth than the one written by Coogler and Joe Robert Cole. Chadwick Boseman, otherwise best known from the Jackie Robinson biopic 42, 2013, returns to the role he originated in Captain America: Civil War, 2016, which took place just a week before the events in Black Panther. T'Challa, the new king of the reclusive African nation Wakanda, is crowned after his father, John Kani, was killed. He resolves to follow the long-upheld tradition of seclusion, maintaining a blind eye to the country's real utopian identity. Though masquerading as a third-world country, the technologically advanced Wakandan nation hides its futuristic gizmos from the world. Their past leaders have worried about letting refugees within their borders. Sound familiar? Fearing that once the world knows about their tech facilitated by Marvel's most precious metal, vibranium, they will be targets. After all, vibranium has allowed the country to develop flying crafts that look like UFOs, medical treatments that can heal crippling wounds, and yes, a clawed black supersuit available only to Wakanda's king. Wakanda is the heart of Black Panther. Exceptional world building establishes its people as an advanced society and proud tribal nation. Jealously devoted to its customs, Wakandans talk about their country with an infectious allegiance to its policies and traditions. Early in the film's admittedly slow start, T'Challa must drink a potion that neutralizes his Black Panther powers to take part in an open challenge to the throne. Should he lose, his people would lament his loss but willingly would follow a new leader. As a ruler, T'Challa worries whether he will live up to the example of his father, John Kani, leading to existential, soul-searching meetings in the astral plane reminiscent of the Lion King. Despite their power and pride, their government's Wakanda First policy bars any refugees from entering their borders, and they dub white men, such as Martin Freeman's CIA agent Ross, as colonizers. Indeed, the Wakandans have watched through history as other cultures have subjugated Africans in acts of colonization, slavery, and mass genocide, and they have resolved to protect their own. As for the superhero conflict, the best villains are the ones you can understand, empathize with, and perhaps, to some extent, even agree with. The X-Men's nemesis Magneto made sense because he believed in evolution and natural selection. If threatened by an intolerant society, the more powerful mutants should fight back, he believed. Similarly, Michael B. Jordan, star of both Coogler's other films, plays Killmonger, a silly name for a character harboring legitimate rage over centuries of dehumanizing crimes committed against people of color, from the CIA injecting drugs into Los Angeles neighborhoods to the assassination of vocal black leaders. Killmonger, whose history reveals a scandal in T'Challa's family past, wants the Wakandan throne to liberate the world's 2 billion people who look like us, he tells his followers. His master plan involves distributing advanced Wakandan weaponry for a worldwide takeover. Even so, the nature of the threat is a reaction to the history of subjugation and oppression. Best of all, Killmonger challenges T'Challa in a way that goes beyond CGI battles. He forces our hero to reconsider his position and admit his failings. And while Killmonger doesn't single-handedly solve the MCU's problem of dull villains, he's the reason Black Panther gives the audience much to think about long after the standard post-credits scene. The male-centric conflict between T'Challa and Killmonger aside, this is a film populated by a superb supporting cast, most of them strong women. Danai Gurira might steal the show as General Okoye, sworn guardian of the throne. A regular fixture on AMC's The Walking Dead, Gurira once again demonstrates her capacity to play a weapon-wielding badass, and here she manages moments of begrudging humor. Lupita Nyong'o plays Nakia, a Wakandan spy, and T'Challa's lingering love interest. When T'Challa, General Okoye, and Nakia take a short trip to South Korea to capture the criminal Ulysses Klaue, Andy Serkis, the trio has a playful albeit short-lived dynamic that brings the characters to life. Angela Bassett is dependable as ever as T'Challa's mother Raymunda. Letitia Wright also shines in her scenes as Shuri, T'Challa's sister, and Wakanda's tech was ostensibly the cue to Black Panther's James Bond. A comic relief character, Shuri nonetheless adds to the endearing quality of the film's main character. Wright's scenes with Boseman lend the hero his few moments of levity. To be sure, if there's a weak component in the cast, it's Boseman, whose role confines him to humorless and joyless nobility. The fault is not Boseman's per se, the script doesn't give T'Challa much personality or a compelling arc. He's saddled with the usual self-doubts of young royalty, where questions about whether he'll live up to his father's legacy, or whether his father's legacy deserves to be upheld, saturate his mind. Forrest Whitaker and Get Out's Daniel Kaluuya also appear, making the most out of their sizable supporting roles. Elsewhere, Coogler's direction has less personality or distinction than his previous work. He adopts that homogenized MCU house style, enforced by the studio to assure a consistent feel across multiple mini-franchises, a style only a couple Marvel directors have been able to innovate upon, take Waititi and James Gunn, for example. He incorporates a few impressive extended takes, obviously comprised of several shorter takes digitally woven together to create the illusion of a longer shot, but no less effective as an immersive approach to scenes of hand-to-hand combat. Director of photography Rachel Morrison, recently Oscar-nominated for her work on Mudbound last year, captures dissimilar settings with equal beauty: the grittiness of a Los Angeles street scene, the neon glow of a dazzling South Korean car chase, the luminescent sunsets in Wakanda. Coogler and Morrison seem to have watched Skyfall as a point of reference, as Black Panther reaches for that actionist variety of locations and visual styles. Of course, there's also a digital sheen to many scenes in Wakanda, as computers have brought this world to life. The underground climax in the Vibranium core looks particularly cartoonish, or at least on par with several other climactic MCU battles. Additionally, whoever was in charge of continuity for the length of Boseman's beard wasn't doing their job. His beard length distractingly alternates from a thick tuft to a tighter cut throughout the film. Regardless of Black Panther's average formal presentation that aligns with the larger MCU, Coogler and Cole's excellent script is what makes the material potent. The film has an unabashed and defiant political viewpoint, supplementing its superhero genre mechanics with a relevant commentary on history, racism, and human injustice, which is more than can be said of earlier MCU titles. When T'Challa reminds us the wise build bridges, while the foolish build barriers, or declares, "All of you were wrong to turn your backs on the rest of the world," the jabs at the Trump administration are evident, and the film's political position becomes unambiguous. Black Panther calls for active participation in the human race beyond the illusion of borders, skin color, religion, or nationality. It explores and understands the appeal of tribalism, but then asks people to broaden their narrow views and realize we're all part of the same tribe. Coogler's ability to provide rousing superhero escapism that also taps into the zeitgeist makes his film an immersive piece of entertainment for the times. This film, directed by Ryan Coogler, written by Ryan Coogler, based on Black Panther, produced by Kevin Feige, starring Chadwick Boseman, cinematography Rachel Morrison, edited by Michael P. Shaver, music by Ludwig Göransson, production company Marvel Studios, distributed by Walt Disney Studios, release dates January 29, 2018. Running time 134 minutes. Country United States. Language English. Budget $200 million. Box office $1.35 billion.